Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, ADHDers of all types, thank you for tuning in to this very special edition of ADHD reWired. This is episode 100. When I began planning this episode, I knew I wanted it to be really special. So I did what I typically do when I put that kind of pressure on myself. I overthink things for a while, but then I asked you. I went to the ADHD Facebook community and I asked for ideas, and Kim Trombo responded with the suggestion that created this episode. She suggested that I ask you, how has this podcast helped you and what has it meant to you? So during 2 recording sessions, I had 12 people join me. Some of them are voices that you will recognize from past shows. But I wanted something more than that. Something that really speaks to what this podcast has really been all about. Something that shows my appreciation for all the past guests and experts who have come on and shared their stories, their strategies, and have been vulnerable and shared this journey with us together. I wanted something that really showed what ADHD rewired is all about. I wanted something kind of like this.
The way I visualize my ADD is I picture a house that's filled with 4-year-olds.
I am like a small company and the chief executive officer is brilliant, but everyone else on staff sucks. The whole support staff is horrible. They don't get anything done. You know, those are all the executive functions.
What I like about the executive functioning view of adult ADHD is that it brings with it all of these insights, not just for understanding, but for management, that you wouldn't get if you kept viewing ADHD as an attention disorder.
Someone with ADHD and someone without, you can be from the same parents and the same environment. The experience, the perceptions in real time are different.
ADHD is like getting rejected. It's a circumstance.
You have to put outside of you the things that other people do in here. You have to offload your working memory onto other devices. Time is seriously affected by this disorder.
Going through life, not understanding why you don't get things like everyone else, but knowing that you're smart, you just don't act like everyone else.
I remember a woman I worked with, and she really wanted to write a book. But her big frustration was when she would have to go back each day and reread the chapter because she couldn't remember what she had written.
Things would pile up, and then I would get so frustrated that I'd just scoop stuff up and take it down the garbage chute.
I was sitting there trying to understand why I was getting lectured for doing well on a test. And it really kind of fits the pattern of what a lot of kids go through.
My 8-year-old was diagnosed with combined type. All of a sudden, I was in a panic. I've got to fix this now because I might get distracted by something and not get back to it.
The way I practiced was I would go in, okay, I got to practice. I should make dinner. I start water boiling, and I remember I had to do something. I see mail I have to do. And then the water's boiling over and I go, oh my gosh, I'm still practicing. And that was how I practiced.
I had to negotiate with those 4-year-olds. I know you don't want to clean the bathroom right now, but afterwards we'll get to do this. And then the 4-year-olds are like, okay.
You have to trust what I call your instruments. If your instruments are saying that you're at the right altitude and going the right speed, then you keep going.
So I became very self-aware about my executive function deficits.
If we're honest with our kids and willing to be vulnerable and say, it's hard for me too, then our kids are much more comfortable talking to us.
My idea of success was like, if I put my goal for 100%, success is like achieving 125 to 135.
We have to have a plan. We have to be effortful.
It's very important to be a self-advocate.
I maintain a constant remembrance and fear of where I was. The trick, though, is to use the fear to fuel you.
You know, I mean, I'll lie to myself all the time just to allow myself to do things that I want to go do.
If we try to make ourselves look perfect And our kids think that they're supposed to be perfect.
So I had to start redefining what success is.
Sometimes we get locked into our story of our life. I don't know where I was and what I was doing, but I heard this or I read it somewhere. It said, when the story you're telling no longer rings true, the words will turn to ashes in your mouth.
You know, I'll put a movie in the background or I'll play an album, and then the 4-year-olds sit down while I get the work done.
You're noticing your thoughts and choosing how you're going to direct your attention in that moment. And that is the key. It sort of exercises that attention muscle in your brain.
Your attention is like a compass. If you just watch it naturally, it's going to gravitate like a magnet and point in the direction in which you should go.
She said, do you have a problem holding on to small details, something like that? And my response was, if I'm interested, hell no. If I'm not interested, hell yes.
I like this quote I just heard the other day. Winston Churchill said, success is going from failure to failure without any loss of enthusiasm. Yeah, don't let somebody tell you you're not intelligent. There's different ways to be intelligent. Find what you're good at and your passion. And when those two meet up, then that's what you should stay doing.
So you go in from this sense of shame and blame and self-deprecation to a place of power.
I don't want to go back. I want to move forward. I want to have more and more control, whether it's financially or personally or just emotionally, of everything in my life.
And I still remember this day when we got on the phone and she said, oh my goodness, I remembered what I wrote. She could actually remember the past, that the day before that she had written, and she could start from there and move forward.
You know, when I quit smoking, I just started at day 6 because I could. Because then after the first day, it's like I got 7 days under the belt. That's something to be proud of.
I'd much rather have a faster car than a slower car, as long as I know how to handle the car properly and how to get it to stop when I need it to, and how to get it to slow down, how to get it to take corners correctly. And if you can figure that out, there's nothing wrong with having a really, really fast engine, which is sort of how our brains work.
Right? It's a circumstance in life. It's your reaction toward that circumstance define who you are.
This is just a part of life. And I decided I was going to look for the beauty in things.
For so long, I wanted to be this person, and I am that. So I'm living the dream.
It's rewired, it's relaunching, it's reinventing yourself.
I'm all about storytelling. I think that is important as education about ADHD is by understanding the science behind it. I mean, let's face it. Would we rather hear a lecture about statistics on ADHD, or would we rather hear a bunch of stories that kind of show what those statistics mean in real life?
This has been the most ADHD of the ADHD Rewired.
ADHD Rewired episode 100! This is the show designed to help those of us who have really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. My name is Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, coach, and consultant. We know that starting can be the hardest part, so let's get started. But first, let me thank our sponsors. Today's podcast is brought to you by ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability Groups. For everyone who has signed up, watch your email inbox. You'll be getting something from me by the end of the week. Today is Monday, January 25th. This is the release date. This is also the last day of registration. What? You've been meaning to register for this group? Go right now to meetme.so/Eric Tivers. Schedule that free 20-minute consultation. Do it now. Don't wait. If you want to be part of this group, I want you to be part of this group. We have 4 spots left as I am recording this, and it is 11:17 p.m. on Monday night. It's just one of those weeks, so I hope you join me. I'm so excited to get started. CoachingRewired.com for more info, but go right away to meetme.so/Eric Tivers to schedule your time to talk. Before we jump in, I just want to tell you what this show is going to be like. You're going to hear an interview that lasts about 10 minutes. And in between each interview, there will be a little audio clip, or maybe every other interview. I'm going to try to take this recording in one take. Let's see if I can do it. I want to tell you really quickly who is going to be on today's podcast. So, and I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce names, but here we go. We're going to start with Lali Weeks, Nisha Nisha, Az Du Soleil, Andrew Ackery, Ellen Brown, Jennifer Ratcliffe, Anne-Marie Nada, and I think that I pronounced your name wrong. I'm totally just leaving this in. We're going raw. This is what this is really all about, this episode. Brendan Mahan, Kristen White, Jessica Freeland, Rob DeTore, Tom Nardone, and we're going to end it with a blooper reel. Then there's a post ending, but in between some of the sessions, some of the interviews, is a very, very special guest who joined me for this, my son. Let's get into the first interview with Lali Weeks. Lali Weeks, how are you?
I'm good. It's my second time on ADHD reWired.
And the first time was on a blab, wasn't it?
It was on a blab and highly unexpected.
You were probably supposed to be doing something else, and then like, oh, what's that?
Yeah, Eric popped up, and I ended up babbling on blab.
Babbling on blab. That kind of sounds fun to say.
Yeah, it was fun though.
So, thank you for joining me on an episode 100. This is you are officially the first person who's sitting in the virtual kind of studio seat as we try to do this episode 100. And for just the listeners give a little context. So I'm recording this on December 4th.
January 4th.
Thank you, January 4th. And Lali will be here to help me out. And so this past weekend, I went sledding with my son, and I learned a very valuable lesson. When you're sledding with your kid and they're 4 and the snow is not snow, but it's ice, don't do it. I spent yesterday in the hospital. I thought I had fractured or broken a rib. I tore what did I say that I tore, Lali?
Tendon.
Cartilage. So it kind of feels like I have someone sticking a knee in my back at all times. So that's kind of just where I'm at this moment. But that's not what today is about. It's as we have all these plans, sometimes things happen, and so that's just where I'm at today. But what today, this recording, this episode is really all about is kind of looking back on 100 episodes of this podcast. So it was back in March of 2014 when I first launched ADHD reWired. And since that time, it's become really more than just a podcast. We've grown a community. We have coaching groups. And I'd like to think that we can use this idea of getting your ADHD rewired as it's something we do. So Lali, I want to kind of check in with you first. Kind of who are you in the context of how you relate to ADHD, the community, the podcast? So Lali, who are you?
Let's see. I'm an ADDer, diagnosed 20 plus years ago. Have 2 ADDers running around my house, one combined type and one who came out of the wombs. And I went, oh, hi, fellow fast brain. And I suspect I have an inattentive ADHD husband, but we have to get him organized to go get evaluated someday. And I'm a writer, a photographer. I do all sorts of things. I do marketing and web consulting. And I also do some parent mentoring, helping parents as they get that first call, that first suspicion that they might be dealing with ADHD. And I'm looking forward to expanding my training and expertise and just helping parents find resources like ADHD reWired or what books to read. It can be really overwhelming if you're new to this world. And so I'm looking forward to expanding that and into a more official role.
I'm glad to hear that this podcast is a resource for you to use to share with parents that you are trying to help. How long have you been listening to the podcast for?
Oh, I want to say probably about a year.
Okay.
I think I first found it during a middle of the night ADHD insomnia, where I go to sleep right away in the evening. I have no problems with that because I'm exhausted from my family and work and whatnot. But then the squirrel gets on the wheel in the middle of the night and starts going. And so you'll frequently find me messaging things or searching things and sending you links for things that I find at 3 a.m. And I think that's when I found ADHD Rewired. I was just poking around in iTunes for new podcasts.
So sometimes the squirrel can lead to a bountiful pile of nuts, and that is ADHD Rewired.
It has been. It's been a great resource. It's definitely on my list of resources that I give to. I always joke Eric is generally in my ear in the morning at the gym. It's kind of an interesting relationship. He doesn't even know he's there most mornings.
It's too bad I can't get the actual benefit of like working out with everyone that tells me that they work out with me.
Yeah. I don't know if you'd always like to hear the dialogue though that's going on in our heads.
It'd be fun to hear sometimes. Sometimes I wish that I can just kind of plug something into my brain so people can hear my internal dialogue, just so they can get like a glimpse of what it's like to have the chatter that goes on in my mind, because sometimes it's amusing.
Well, I think it would be a great tool for doubters, non-believers, and also for spouses and parents who don't have ADHD to just have. I think that they would be truly shocked if they had a moment to live inside our brains.
Yeah, I think that's probably very true. I've been thinking for quite some time about creating some kind of an audio kind of simulation of what it's like to have ADHD.
It would be really tough, and I think it's hard. Like I know in my household with my husband, we joke that if he's pacing around the house, problem solving like a project for work or something, and the boys will say, "Oh, Daddy's going into the zone," and we joke that when he's focused on something, the house could burn down. I would have to run back in the house and physically say, "The house is burning down. We must leave now." Whereas I'll be grabbing things and grabbing children and running in 75 directions, and the firemen will probably come in and go, "Ma'am, you have to leave now." And I'll be like, "No, one more thing. I have to get one more thing." But I think it would. I think it would be really overwhelming. And, I think what's great about your podcast and some of the others like Attitude Magazine's podcast and things is you have great resources, and it's a great mix of resources for adult ADDers, parents, spouses. So I always tell people, if the first 3 that you pull up in iTunes don't relate to you or don't speak to you, you don't have to listen to every single rundown. There are great show notes. Just click on that, open it up, and see what they're talking about.
So do you use the show notes on the podcast? Is that a resource you use?
I do. I especially do if I'm, for instance, Lori's recent episode about medication.
Wasn't she great?
It was great. And I sent the link to a friend who's struggling with medication for her son. And mainly just to say, I keep telling you this, and please believe me, it can be a struggle to find your sweet spot. Mm-hmm. But when you get there, your kid is going to know it, and they're going to be like, And so it's great to have those resources both for my own education, or sometimes it's something I've heard a million times, but it reminds me of something.
Yes.
Or it's just the thing I need to hear
at that moment.
Day.
Right. So let me ask you this, Ollie. So do you have a favorite episode or a favorite guest?
Well, I think one of the episodes that really somewhat coincided with my narrowing my focus on what I've been doing, because on my website, I had been writing mostly just about my own life experience. I used to say to people, I blog about being a parent with ADHD versus parenting to ADHD, which, and just sharing my own frustrations, challenges, what I'm doing. And then when my youngest son was just starting on that path of diagnosis, and Diane and Elaine were on from Impact ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really so interesting. And I think in that podcast, or maybe it was another where they were touching on twice gifted,
Mm-hmm.
Or twice exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And those were really important and interesting points, I thought, for me, really started to both personally growing up before ADHD existed,
mm-hmm.
And being, in the gifted program, but no, she's dumb, but no, she's gifted. It was really great to hear that there are people who are working to help those kids, so that they don't feel like they live in no man's land.
So the one with Elaine Taylor Klaus is your favorite episode, you'd say?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. And Diane wasn't on that one, but I know we do have her scheduled to come on. She is scheduled to come on fairly soon. And I think we're going to be talking about stress when she comes on. That's what we talked about a while ago. Who knows what'll come out by the time we actually record. So let me just ask you one or two more quick questions, and then we want to kind of keep this flowing. All right.
Absolutely.
So, was there a specific tip, strategy, or a tool or something that you heard on the podcast that's very specific that you are currently using today?
Well, here's a great example of something I've heard multiple times from its source on various platforms, but it just happened to resonate really, really strongly it was one day that Alan was on, and I forget what the overall topic was, but you guys were talking and he was kind of going through some of his life hacks.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of them is, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
Shut up, you brain. And it was just so funny because, I've watched the ADD Crusher videos.
Mm-hmm.
I log on to things whenever Alan's around. And it was just so funny because I'd heard that a multitude of times. I forget what his exact words are.
Is it the one where it's like, that's BS and that's not what I'm doing right now?
Yeah. And it was so funny because it literally was like he'd reached in my head and rung a gong. And again, really annoying because now I'll be drifting off into something, and darn it, if it is an Alan's voice too,
that's awesome.
That gets in my head and goes, and with his accent, and that Jersey accent. And it's so funny because it was something that I'd heard, and so I've said to people too, if you've listened to Eric's podcast all the time, that's awesome, but don't skip a podcast that he's guesting on or a webinar that he's a guest on, because you never know when there might be some new tidbit or a tidbit that you just really haven't been ready to implement or use or absorb yet. And so, it's just kind of like, just keep, bathing yourself in that information and take because you can't absorb everything. You can't implement everything. So that's kind of what I think is great about it.
All right. I have one final question for you, and that's, what do you do, say on a daily basis, that helps you get your ADHD rewired?
My number one tool is on Sunday nights, Sunday afternoon or evenings, I do a weekly plan. What are basically what are the five things, depending on how time consuming they are, that I have to get done that week. And then I print out a daily printout of my calendar for each day. So I see, I have to volunteer in the library at, noon on Tuesday, and I have a physical therapy appointment, so that then I can and I write in my day, I'm going to work out and shower. And then I have a podcast, I have this at noon. So then I can really physically see, and I can block out, I have from 1 to 2:30 to work.
So Sunday planning.
And I kind of pencil out my week. And so then I can say, okay, well, this list, what are the things that I can get done? The goal-oriented, work-oriented. And then, they're the most miscellaneous family. But I find that if I have my printed out calendar and I can actually physically see that, once I've gone to the gym and I've gone to the grocery store and I went to PT and I went to and volunteered in the library. What is my time that's available still? Because I think time blindness is certainly something we all struggle with. And for me to have it,
I'm going to hit the gong. You mentioned the gong earlier, and I was like, "Ooh, I should have a gong for this episode to keep
Don't
everything
you have a
going."
sound effect? A sound effect? There you go.
All right, Lolly, thank you so
honey.
much. All right,
congratulations.
Thank you.
100 more.
Yes, I don't. I have no plans of stopping anytime soon.
Good for you.
Welcome to ADHD Rewired. This is episode number 1.
ADHD is drawing up a list of what you're going to do today and then adding up the hours and realizing you've just written down almost 14 hours worth of stuff. And so you say, well, I've got the next 2 days planned, and since it'll be over 2 days, I better put in a couple of things for tomorrow. And then you add it up again, and you're now looking at 31 hours. And so you think, well, I'll plan the whole week, even though you've forgotten that you've done this 1,000 times and never actually followed any of these organizational lists. And you have a whole section of your computer called to-dos and lists and Tuesday's list and Wednesday's list. And there's 4 named Wednesday's list. And you never get to any of them. And then when you finally give up at 2 p.m, the day's gone, and you're so upset with yourself for wasting another day that you don't do anything. You just need to take a break.
Welcome, Nisha. I'm just gonna go with Nisha. Okay, can we just do that? I'm working on remembering the first name correctly. So you heard Nisha last week. Now it's really funny because from an ADHD perspective, I'm saying right now, last week, it's actually won't be released until I think next week. So I'm thinking of future. It just hurts my brain. So I'll just go from there. So, Nisha, welcome to the 100th episode of ADHD Rewired. So you kind of heard a number of the questions that that I just asked Lolly Weeks, and I'm going to ask you some of those same questions. Now you were on a recent episode, so I think that it's not fully necessary to go and because you can go back and listen to I believe it's episode 99. It might be 98. Because right now, while I'm recording this, episode 97 is coming out tomorrow. I'm telling you, this podcast recording like beforehand, and you have these things planned, it just hurts my brain. Some podcasters, I don't do it like really smoothly. I'm like, how do you keep all that in track? And so anyways, I just do the best I can. So let me ask you this.
Good enough.
What is your favorite episode of the podcast?
To be honest, I will start with a confession. So I only started listening to the podcast in September of last year when I met Eric face to face for the first time at a Brené Brown event. So I haven't listened to too many podcasts. The backlog is very big. I'm still working my way through the podcasts. But I hate to repeat Lolly because she mentioned Alan Brown, but I have to say I really loved his episode too. He's
been on twice too.
Right, and I'm talking about. I think I went and looked back because I had made a note. It was I think 92, episode 92.
Okay, so his recent episode,
the recent one, yeah.
Great.
And I just loved that. A man who's like really turned his life around, and he says he still has fear. I love that. I mean, that's an honest thing to say on a podcast. And I just love that vulnerability that he showed. And I really liked that episode.
Yeah, Alan Brown is always a kind of a favorite guest. I know, I would say, especially back in episode, I think it was 25, probably one of my top 10 favorite episodes of the podcast. Partially because he gave me a tip that has helped me and I've continued to use, and that's using that one-page productivity sheet that he introduced me to that Brendan Bouchard created. So you haven't been listening for that long, and that's certainly okay. But you've also had, you and I have had a lot of kind of face-to-face time in the coaching group. So let me ask you this question. Based on maybe what you've heard on the podcast, but also what you've have experienced in the coaching group, what is the number one way that you say you get your ADHD rewired?
Okay, I look at this as a 3-step process. It's self-awareness, self-acceptance, which is huge, and self-advocacy. I think these are 3 short ways to get your ADHD rewired. I have been more productive ever since I listened to your podcast and did your coaching group, only because I have been more accepting of the fact that I have ADHD and accepting of what comes with it, inconsistency, the working memory, the time blindness. I have accepted it. And that makes the biggest difference to me.
And when you say you've accepted it, it's not just accepting it and kind of throwing your hands up in the air and saying, oh well. It's it's acceptance through having compassion for yourself while at the same time continuing to work on the things that you can. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And now when someone gives me a hard time for something I do, I am very, vocal about it. And I said, I'm not being a jerk here. I'm not. I'm doing, I did this because this is what I go through, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Or else.
Yeah.
And so you've been listening since, you said, September. Let me say, when you do listen to the podcast, how do you listen to it? Like, where are you? Like, what do you do when you listen?
So earlier I had a very loosey-goosey way of every now and then I'd, listen to a podcast here and there. But my commitment this year has been to listen to a podcast every day. So now I'm working my way through the backlog and, all the other podcasts. Like, basically, I've been listening to something or the other every day. I don't have a job right now, so, my day is entirely open. There's no specific place I listen to, but I like to have a notebook with me when I listen to a podcast. So I probably won't do this at the gym.
Awesome. Let me ask you this, since you've been part of the coaching group. I'm gonna, kind of this mindset of, we do the mastermind session where we sit in the hot seat in the coaching group. So if I were to put myself in the hot seat for just a quick moment here, say if there was one thing that you would like to maybe see differently done on the podcast, maybe an idea that you have that you would like to see at some point between now and episode 200, what would it be?
I remember you had opened up the Facebook feed for these kind of questions. I don't know. See, again, I haven't, gone through your backlog, so I don't know if you've already done it. But there's something which is very personal to me, and this hurts me a lot, is when people are callous about the fact that I have ADHD, and they dismiss it as, just another made up disease, or doesn't everyone have ADHD, or, something like that. Oh, you don't have ADHD. I get that a lot. And it hurts. It really hurts. Yeah. And I wish I had a better way to confront these people and say something to them. But most often I will just sulk and retreat to a corner. I don't want to do that. I want some episode that, really gives me those tools and says, here's what you say to these people. Here are the facts, and maybe a cheat sheet.
All right. Or maybe even doing an episode all of people's kind of best, maybe comebacks or things that they say when faced with those kinds of scenarios, because it's certainly something that I think most of us face at times, sometimes more than others.
Right. And sometimes I'll tell you, sometimes I'll be in the middle of the night. I have these, times when I'm up. I'll be wrought with I'll be so scared for myself, and I'll think, there's no physical test to prove this. Like, how am I going to prove to people that I have this? And what if tomorrow there's a physical test and then somebody tells me I'm not ADHD?
Can I tell you something, Nisha? I have that same fear. I want you to know that.
It's so nice to hear that.
and for me, it's like, oh my gosh. So if, here I am. I've made a career out of creating my own self-awareness and then helping people with what I've learned. And
Right.
what if they were somehow able to just like scientifically prove without any doubt, almost as certain as a pregnancy test where you either are or you're not, that like, oh no, Eric, you don't actually have ADHD.
Right.
I have that fear too. And then I just kind of look at the thought. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thought. And then I just try to have some self-compassion and keep on moving.
Right. I mean, I guess, with all the symptoms, they check, and they've always checked. That's how I know. And that's what I tell myself. Like, even if I look back back to my childhood, it checks.
Yeah. And I think that, one of my, besides from the learning kind of the science and specific strategies, for me, I think the most important part of ADHD rewired is helping people really know that they're not alone in these struggles. Hi, Gibson.
Hi, Daddy.
How are you?
Great.
Guess what?
What?
Do you know what episode it is?
Oh, I remember. It's episode 100.
100, that's right.
Uh-huh.
Do you know that you've been on a couple of the past episodes?
Was I on episode numbers 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90?
I couldn't help but notice, but it seems like you were counting by tens.
Yes, I was counting by tons.
Yeah, I don't think that you were on the tens, but it's an interesting idea. We have, as returning on to ADHD Rewired, joining us for the 100th episode, the one and only Oz du Soleil.
Добрый вечер, люди.
Hey, Oz, I have no idea what you said, but it sounded awesome. So thanks for joining me for the 100th episode. This is certainly a milestone in anything that's to do with ADHD. Doing anything 100 times consistently, that's certainly something to celebrate.
Yes.
So I want to ask you a couple questions. One, do you have a favorite episode or favorite guest that you've heard from the podcast?
Let's say me and Tom.
When wasn't that the group? Was that episode 50?
No, just in general.
Anytime it's with you and Tom?
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to remember, was there an episode where I had you and Tom on?
No, you haven't.
So the episode that hasn't occurred yet is your favorite episode?
No, anytime, me or Tom. Yeah.
So I know I heard you guys on his show, on the Tom Nardone show. Man, that was an awesome episode. I loved it.
Thanks. Yeah.
You were able to bring out a side of Tom that I hadn't, like hearing you guys kind of talk over your experiences in the service. I mean, that was awesome.
Oh, what did you hear that you what did you hear that was brought out of Tom?
Just the level of Tom's got a lot of skill in a lot of areas that, it's I don't want to say it's surprising, but it's, based on the relationship that I have with Tom, it's this like whole other part of him. To hear that he was like in the Navy, to me, is just like it's hard to picture. It's hard to imagine Tom in the Navy.
Yeah. And I kind of identified with that, and I appreciated that conversation. Found out that we had similar struggles.
Yeah.
Now he was more successful than I was. I still never quite got the rules, and they were ready to kick me out. But Tom fortunately never got to that point.
So I think when we had you on, and I don't remember what episode number it was on, but it was a while back. The title was called Excel at ADHD. And the reason it was titled that, because Oz is like an Excel ninja. I mean, I typically am a person who would say that spreadsheets make my eyes glaze over. And Oz got me interested in seeing the magic that Excel creates. And I think when we first talked, you were in the process of publishing or writing a book. And that book has since been released, hasn't it?
Yeah. The guerrilla data analysis, it did come out last April.
Well, congratulations on that. That's a huge victory. What are you working on now?
I finished writing another book, but it's not ready.
So since that release, since we last talked and now you've written another book?
Yes.
All right, now, so you got to tell me then, what are you doing on a daily basis that's helping you get your ADHD rewired?
What am I doing on a daily basis? One thing is to remember to take my medicine. That's one thing. That's a tough thing to remember, but I do that. Another thing is to have a journal. What I've heard called a capture journal.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a Skype call with a client, it goes in a journal. Talking with my mechanic about something, it goes right in that same journal. So when something goes away, slips my mind, whatever, it's in that journal somewhere.
Awesome.
Right. So I've tried other structured things, blocking out things on the calendar, and that stuff has never worked for me. But keeping a single journal for every damn thing, so that I know if my mechanic suggested a tow truck driver, or I have a 2 mouse setup here, right? And so somebody suggests a good mouse. Okay, the model number of that mouse goes into the journal with the tow truck driver, with the client notes.
Everything's in one place.
Yes.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah. So that's another daily thing. A not so daily thing is I started hiring a professional organizer. But anyway, I won't get into that unless you ask me about it.
So I hear that you've hired a professional organizer. You want to tell us about that?
Well, I'll tell you, if I was interested in getting married, I'd get down on one knee and I'd get some big old diamond and say, "Woman, we got to do this." See, the thing is, it was important because, my place was a mess the first time. I had moved in here and I still had boxes that were full, partially unpacked, and stuff stacked up in various places. And I called a professional organizer, and she was brilliant. She saw that I had clothes hanging on a chair that's over here in this corner. And I said, look, she came over to do a consultation. I said, look, I manage my ADHD the way that I manage it, and I need help dealing with clutter. I don't need help with somebody trying to correct my habits. So when she suggested, okay, the clothes that are hanging on the chair, you need a coat rack in this room. Great.
Yeah.
Brilliant. As opposed to her reminding me that I've got closets. I know I've got closets. And I'm not using them, obviously. See, when she suggested coat racks, yes.
Because it's almost as easy as tossing it on the chair.
Yes, almost as easy. And it's easy enough to think before I throw it on the chair, there is a coat rack not even 2 feet away.
I think that's a brilliant idea. My when I was growing up, my mom would always give me a hard time. We had this perfect banister for tossing coats. And I said, well, why don't you just get another pole on this banister that has a couple other hooks? She wouldn't go for it. She's in the closet. It's like, please.
Yeah.
There's so many steps besides remembering to do it. There's opening the closet door. There's grabbing a hanger. There's putting it on the hanger. Hopefully it stays on the hanger. It's putting it back on in the closet. Hopefully the coat stays on the hanger in that process. And there's closing the door. A coat hanger or a coat rack, way better. Love it.
And there is going to put the shirt in the closet and getting distracted by something.
Yes.
And then I'm back there making the bed or something rather than coming back here and working or whatever I meant to do. So things have got to be easy and sweet, so when she suggested a coat rack, because I have had personal organizers that would try to coach me into better habits. That's not what I asked for. I buy, say, 5 dental flosses because I know I'll have them around and I just need to look for a second and I'll find one. But if it's no, there's this little drawer that you can put it in. No.
And I just I just reached on my desk and I have in here my dental floss toothpicks.
Yes.
Because it's like I had really good intentions about flossing. I'm like, you know what? If it's just sitting here, like I'm going to be more inclined to do it.
Yes. And I've got those too. I've got yes. And that is a good way of managing that stuff and taking care of your dental hygiene.
That's right.
Because I know your wife don't want to kiss a toothless man.
So I see in the chat here, Lolly asks, how many hats can you wear in one interview? And the funniest thing is that I did not even realize you changed hats until Lolly just pointed that out.
Shoot, I could go through maybe 10 if I had them all here.
That's awesome. Now, do you have an organized system for your hats?
No, that's more of a challenge. We had discussed that. Because the size of the hats, now they have a place. They do have a place, but I would probably need a bunch of hat boxes or hooks that are spread much further apart. So like this hat, the way it's shaped, it'd be harder to get it on a hook.
So how would you describe the hat for listeners? Just a kind of a straw cowboy hat? Is that straw?
Yeah, this is a straw cowboy hat as opposed to a fur felt cowboy hat. So this is a straw hat. It's kind of like what the bull riders would wear.
Awesome.
Yes.
I love it. You got great hats, man.
Thanks. That's ADHD is riding the bull. And it's only for the tough, the people who, and you got to have a hat. Eric, you got to get a hat or else ADHD will buck you off and you'll wind up in the abyss with all the unmade decisions.
We're going to get our ADHD rewired through some awesome hats.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm going to get Andrew on here in just a second. Thanks for hopping on for episode 100.
100. All right.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right. Yep.
I'm really good at coming up with new ideas, and that process, it's stimulating. It's like a new world.
So I tell myself the story. I'll get back to that later.
You say, it will only take me a minute to go and do X. And that's true. But a minute later, you face the same decision. And so then you say the same thing. There are many things that will only take a minute. And then every time you do it, of course, it's a rational decision. So you feel quite sane. But 3 hours later, you're watching cat videos and how did I get here?
When I looked at the list, there's no way I could humanly complete all these things and tasks and wants. It forced me to pare down and really get in a space where I could be okay with that.
There's nothing like accountability. That's the magic that this group provided for me.
When it bleeds over into your life and your life looks like an incomplete song, it's like that you're capable of more.
I am here with Andrew Acre, and I got to meet Andrew at the CHAD conference, and so I'm really happy to have you on. And I know that so I'm just going to let you introduce yourself, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what ADHD rewired, kind of what it means to you, how you listen to it, and all things related to that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I'm Andrew Acre. I am an ADHD coach. I'm ADHD. I got my diagnosis when I was around 10. Yeah, basically after like struggling through my 20s, kind of had this phase of my life where I had sort of dismissed that I had ADD. You know, I in school, I was kind of like, oh yeah, this is a real thing that affects my life. And then sort of once I got done with school, I kind of like just didn't think about ADD anymore. And I remember when Doug Harris was on your show, he mentioned like having like a lost decade. So I kind of feel like I had a lost decade to a certain extent.
You're not that old.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, that's not a totally fair assessment, but you know,
now is this like a decade in like ADHD time, or is this like a real decade?
Or I don't know. How does that work? Is ADHD time longer or shorter?
Yeah, I think it all depends on you know what we're doing.
So anyway, yeah. Basically, around my late 20s, I was like, hey, something's not going on right with my life, and I'm not nearly as productive as I'd like to be. And so I actually went and saw a therapist about ADD and saw her for a few years.
Okay.
And at the same time wanted to make a career change, and was always interested in the behavioral sciences and what made people tick. And that's how I got into coaching.
Awesome. So tell me, when did you first discover the podcast?
I first discovered you a little over a year ago at CHAD 2014 in Chicago. I saw you talk there, and it was one of my favorite presentations.
Thank you.
And it was great because you talked about productivity and tips and tools and skills, and those were always kinds of things for me that like I've always excelled at soft skills and have had a hard time with the hard skills of things, or you know, using specific tools. And I really enjoyed your presentation and the fact that you prefaced it by saying complexity comes with mastery, and you know, there's no shame in using whatever works for you, whether that's the simplest thing or the most complex thing. And that, so you really sort of got me with that one. But I didn't really start listening to the podcast until midsummer, late summer of 2015. I hadn't really been a podcast person before at some point last year. So it wasn't really anything against you. I just hadn't really started listening to podcasts until this year. But then,
do you remember your first episode?
Yeah, I actually, okay, little preface. So I remembered that the podcast existed because my friend, Carolyn Dargenio had been on your show. She and I once did a coaching workshop together. I knew her through that. And so I remembered it, and I was kind of like, you know, went to the website and was looking around. And I actually, the first episode that I listened to was the one with Adam Mueller, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that was a great episode.
Absolutely. So my reaction to that episode was like two things. One was like, so kind of like envious that I wasn't like in the conversation, because like I thought the conversation was so great. And, you know, there was like part of me that was like, oh God, I wish I could have been there for that. But it was also just really amazing to hear people talking about the emotional side of ADHD and how shame plays a part, and talking about some of my favorite stuff, including Brene Brown.
Awesome. That's a good one to start with then.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So, do you have an all-time favorite episode?
I also, another episode that made a really big impact on me was the one with Mary D. Sklar. Because it put this very tricky subject of time blindness into terms that resonated with me. And after I listened to that episode, I went and got her materials, and
isn't it great?
I started using them with myself and started using them with my clients. And so that was a huge episode for me. Absolutely. Yeah, but I mean, awesome. I have a lot of favorites, so the list is long.
It's Not a bad thing. That's a good thing from my perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there a specific tool, tip, or strategy that you heard from the podcast that you are still using today?
Ryan McRae, I think, so he mentioned, so I use field notes like he does. And I've been using those for a while. I've been using these for like I want to say like 7 years or something like that. But he had a really simple little hack that made it just more productive for me, which was putting a double line between, like, when you pick it up, like anytime you pick it back up and start new, put a double line there.
Can you describe really quickly what field notes are?
Yeah, sorry. They're just little pocket notebooks. They're like 3x5 or something like that. So it fits in your pocket. And I need, just like Oz was talking about in terms of, just to capture everything. So having a place to capture everything that I can keep on my person is indispensable. So I had that, but just a little hack of like putting the double line and then made it so much more like understandable to me. Like I could see like where I picked up and left off, and I could see that this was a new subject. And all of a sudden, once I introduced that, like it made this system so much more useful. And
I love that.
Like simple versus complex. It's amazing how something that simple can make a profound change.
Yes. And, that reminds me of things like sometimes I will label, because I use a paper kind of planning notebook. Sometimes I will title like the headers using bubble letters, like just sometimes. And doing it sometimes also kind of helps increase the sticky factor of paying attention to it. Or moving where I have a certain kind of area on my layout, on the page, just having it slightly different. It's like these little things that you wouldn't think would make a big deal really do. And that's one of the things that I do on a regular basis to help get my ADHD rewired. What does it mean to you, Andrew, when you hear that idea, when you hear that phrase, getting your ADHD rewired? What does that mean to you?
Good question. Well, first off, I'd say that I like the phrase because it's a good metaphor for like the neural plasticity. And we're not trying to like completely change something 180. We're not trying to like totally eliminate something or like wish that it wasn't there. What I like that it suggests like malleability, and it suggests improvement, and it suggests paving new paths that are going to be better than the old paths that we've paved. I think that's about it.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, I think I want to just end it there because that's a positive note to end on.
Right.
Andrew, thank you so much for hopping on for episode 100. Hey, whatever happened to the BDHD podcast?
'Cause you had the ADHD podcast?
Right, and then you had the BDHD podcast. I think there were only like 2 episodes.
Yeah, and Mommy has the CDHD podcast.
So are you going to record any more podcasts of your own?
I will record much more episodes.
Do you think that you want to start a brand new podcast?
Sure.
Okay, what's it going to be called?
It's going to be called the They Might Be Giants podcast.
I wonder if there is a podcast by They Might Be Giants. Why do you like them right now?
'Cause of Don and Don.
Yeah, you're watching the DVDs that they made?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool, huh? Kind of funny.
Yeah.
We have, joining me for the 100th episode, Alan Brown. Hey, Alan.
Hey, Eric. Great to be here. And I want you to see real quick that we put together a little bit of a tribute to you.
Oh, that is awesome. So in the Crusher Studios, the Crusher TV Studios, he has a my what do you call it? Art that I created for the 100th episode. He put that on, so I appreciate that, Alan.
Yeah, with a big congratulations, and you'll forgive me. I keep forgetting that this is audio, so Eric always has to explain what it is I'm talking about.
That's okay. You know, I keep having these really good intentions of actually using the video that I record. Maybe I will for the 100th.
Yeah, no, but congratulations to you and to the whole ADHD rewired gang. It's just a really impressive achievement.
You know, I had you were on episode 25, and then you were on again recently. I think 90 something.
92, I think.
92, yes. You would probably know better than me. You know, when it's your episode, you kind of tend to know what episode you're on, right? So this is 100 episodes. It's hard to keep track of, and I have to say that episode 25 is still easily in my top 10 favorite episodes for me personally, because I am still using one of those strategies, the Brendan Bouchard one-page productivity sheet. So I know I thanked you for that on the last episode, and so just thank you again for that. I know a lot of people have said to me, Alan, that your episodes have been of their favorite episodes.
Oh, that's great. I'm delighted to hear that. And you know, you remember too, that episode 25, we did very impromptu. So it was really kind of a credit to you. I mean, we did it at the ADA conference, I believe, in Orlando. And you just took me aside and said, let's just go over here. It was at the end of the conference. Everybody was kind of leaving, rumming, about. And you said, let's just go sit on this bench over here. And we banged out that show, and it turned out to be a great episode.
I think that you and I think we left Ned Hallowell's keynote because I think we've both heard his keynote before. So we're like, let's go do this.
I think you're right.
So let me ask you this. So I don't know how much you listen to the podcast. You don't need to lie if you don't listen. It's okay. But
I get it where and when I can. I couldn't tell you really what my favorite episodes are because I really do kind of pick it up in kind of dribbles and bits. But I do want to say though that my favorite thing about the podcast is the professionalism and the technical excellence that you have brought, not just to the podcast, but I think to the whole community. Because I really, you can't really say this for yourself because but I can say it that there really aren't many podcasts out there that are doing what you're doing at the level that you're doing it with the lower thirds and the quality of the audio and the use of technology. So that's my favorite part about the ADHD Rewired podcast.
Well, thank you, Alan. I definitely appreciate that. I have a lot of respect for what you are doing too. I know, I'm producing audio, you're producing video, and I know that that's like at least 5 times more work than what I'm doing.
Yeah, but my audio sucks. we're going to fly you in.
We're going to improve that. Tom Nardone and myself are both going to help you improve your audio because we've talked about it. We're like, your video is awesome. We got to get your audio up to that same caliber. And the good news is that's actually kind of easy to do. So we're going to get you there. We're going to get you there.
I look forward to that.
So let me ask this. Is there anything that you can recall from an episode that you've listened to that kind of resonated with you or stuck with you?
I have to say, and this is sort of cheating, but it's something that you said in, and I forgot which episode it was, but and it might have even been touched on in the one that in 92. But you talked about shame in a way that I had not heard it talked about before, and you can talk about shame in a way that is kind of very off-putting and kind of gets you down, but you sort of talked about shame in a way of delivering just higher awareness of it. And with that high awareness, sort of unlocking a door to action. And that's, I think, my greatest hit, I would say, from the podcast. And again, it wasn't something from one of your guests. It was something from you.
Well, that's awesome because that would mean that the messages that the learnings that I've kind of taken in from Brene Brown, I've been able to translate in a way that's meaningful to you and to the rest of the audience. So that's awesome to hear that from you. So Elle, let me ask you this. So I know you're crushing it with what you're doing and you're unleashing your power, right? But what does it mean to you when you think about getting your ADHD rewired?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just being interviewed by someone earlier today, and I was asked what are some of the kind of most overlooked things for people who are struggling with focus and productivity. And it really is that so many of us, and this sort of ties in with the shame thing a little bit, Eric, but so many of us, adults with ADHD, get resigned to the idea that, well, that's just kind of the way it is. And yeah, and I've always kind of procrastinated on this kind of stuff. And, I'm just not one of those people that's able to do X, Y, and Z. Or I've always taken a long time to get this kind of stuff done. Or no, that kind of big project or that kind of a attainment of that kind of goal, that's really not the purview of me because I never had. And that, I think, is the single biggest area of just wrongness that we get into. And when you can even rewire your ADHD a little bit, you can start to open up that window to see some possibilities. And it's just, there's so much opportunity out there for those who become aware that you can rewire your ADHD with some really simple things too.
Awesome, Alan. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, when you do listen to the podcast, how do you listen to it? I go to your website a lot just to check, to touch base with what you're doing online. But I also just watch the Facebook feeds for the most part, because that's where I'm keeping track of everything for the Crusher brands. So that's where I see it. I have not yet really started to use this as much. I have been listening and
to.
He's holding up his iPhone.
Oh, I'm doggone it. I'm holding up my iPhone.
He's a video guy,
I have been listening on occasion to Startup,
great podcast,
very popular one, and I do catch a couple of yours here, but it's not my main medium for podcasts. I'm really just picking them up in the social media feeds and going, oh, let me go to that now.
Awesome. Alan, what I'm looking forward to is coming on your 100th episode of Crusher TV. Ooh. And man, because I tell you, when I started, I couldn't. If someone said you'd be doing 100 episodes and you wouldn't miss a week, I'd be like, yeah, right. And what Eric, it really is, it's 1 week at a time.
I think you just signed yourself up for the 100th episode of Crusher TV.
I'll be there.
We're doing episode 17 tonight. So in 82 weeks, 83 weeks or so, I'm calling this in. I just wrote it down. Eric Tibbers.
It's on a bright, big yellow sticky note. That's good as gold right there. Alan Brown, thank you so much for celebrating this milestone with me. And of course, you're invited back on again.
Oh, I can't wait. And thank you for everything you're doing for this community, and thank you for the community that you have created. Really impressive, noble, and thanks for bringing quality to this medium and this community.
I do it with pleasure. So thank you so much, Alan.
Translating, science into practical ideas.
So the wall of awful is the emotional barrier that prevents us from engaging in activities that we often fail at.
The problem with just is, and this gets into the kind of psychology side of it, is I should just be able to do this.
It's too easy to be a non-ADD partner and say, well, it's all your fault because you have ADD. And it's too easy to be an ADD partner and say, oh, well, it's not my fault because you're really angry at me. Most couples, the vast majority of couples, did not know they had ADHD when they entered their partnership.
They spent a long time putting in effort to try to appear neurotypical.
Our voices need to be heard. I am so tired of ADHD people getting shoved to the side because they're not productive or not seen as superstars or whatever. We're superstars in our own right.
We have Jennifer Ratliff. And Jennifer, remind me, what episode were you on? It was in the 30s.
I just looked because I figured you would ask this. It was like 41 or something. It was in the 40s.
And it was about college and, right?
Life, yeah, from this very
college
bed that I'm sitting on.
She has not moved since. Well, so give us an update about what's the last year or so kind of been like for you?
Okay, so at that time, I was still on Vyvanse and experiencing side effects and stuff. I ended up, when I went home for winter break that time, having to go off of Vyvanse because of heart issues. Like when I was, apparently my anxiety would get my heart rate up to 160, which is not good.
Yeah, that's like faster than like techno music.
Yeah. So, and then I'd also lost a little bit of weight. So my doctor was concerned. And so she decided at that point to put me on a beta blocker and said that I couldn't take ADHD meds for the moment.
Okay. And then?
And then I've been doing school without meds ever since.
Wow. How you doing?
Some days it's really hard.
Yeah.
Especially when you take classes like music industry contract law and you want to die.
Music industry contract law. The music part sounds good. I think everything else was tough. So let me ask you this. So I want to focus a bit on kind of your experience. So you've been, I know you've been part of the community for a while. You participated in one of the coaching groups. You've been obviously listening to the podcast for a while. Do you have a favorite episode?
I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite because there are so many to choose from. There's actually 99 to choose from. So that's a lot of choices.
And in all fairness, if someone asked me that question, I hate the questions about like, what's your favorite? That was actually very difficult for me to answer. Do you have your favorite like themes maybe that come up in the podcast?
Just anything that's relatable. I like knowing that, other people do this stuff. And then, it's just like, oh, this is this, not my own stupidity.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's clear. It's one of the big things about ADHD rewired is that people can have that Me Too experience and know that they are not alone. Has there been a specific tip or strategy that you have learned that you're using that you can remember that you learned from the podcast and that you're using?
You're asking me to remember things. This is painful.
I hear you.
I don't know. Well, just learning how to break up tasks has been important because obviously, last year I had my dorm room to myself for the entire semester, but last semester I had to have a roommate. And this semester I'm going back to not having a roommate. So like dividing up the task of I'm switching beds. So I've got to divide that task up. I've got to just move things around, and it's easier to manage when you think of it as small pieces.
All right.
And that's something I've learned.
Great. A lot of people listen to their podcasts, whether maybe it's in the car, while they're working out, maybe on the way to class. Where do you listen to the podcast?
I usually listen to it in my room, and I play solitaire while listening to podcasts.
All right. If you would share with somebody else what it means for you to get your ADHD rewired, how would you describe that?
It means changing how you think about it. Because if you think about it as a negative thing, like all the time, and you're like, oh, this is, I totally lost my train of thought. That is so ADHD.
That is okay. My question was, how do you describe getting your ADHD rewired kind of for yourself?
Okay. Yeah. Changing the way you think about it so that you're not always beating yourself up about stuff that is part of ADHD. It's like
losing your train of thought.
ADHD is part of them, but when you're thinking like that, when you're like me and you beat yourself up a lot, you can't think of your ADHD as part of you. You have to think, oh, that's my ADHD, not me.
Okay. So it kind of,
then you'll beat yourself up.
Yeah, no, that's great. Anything that you would like to see in future episodes of the podcast, or here, I guess?
That would be here because this is technically an episode. Yeah.
Yes. So what would you like to hear? Any ideas?
I can't think of anything.
The suggestion box is open.
Yeah. I'm currently listening to 96, episode 96. I'm a little bit behind at the moment. And, talking about meds, probably going to be awesome. I don't know how far I am into it, but it seems like it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, Laura Dupar is great. Shared some really great information. I've already gotten a lot of really good feedback about that episode.
Yeah, especially because I've been on 5 different meds and none of them have worked.
And you are not the only one who has experienced that. So, Jennifer, first I want to say thank you for coming on, episode 100. Congratulations on what you are doing. I know that doing college without medication can be a challenge, and the fact that you are still there, you're trucking away, that says a lot for your tenacity. So, keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Hello to Daddy's new student, Gibson Robert Tivers.
Hello.
Hi.
What do you want to learn today?
I want to learn about why infinity plus 1 equals infinity.
Well, why do you think infinity plus 1 equals infinity?
I think when you add all the numbers up together, it equals infinity.
When you add all the numbers up together, it equals infinity. So infinity plus infinity doesn't equal to infinity?
No.
No? Why not?
So I don't know. I don't know why not.
You don't know why not?
No, not at all.
Well, do you know why 7, 8, 9?
'Cause 6 was afraid of 7. That's why 7, 8, 9.
We are here with Anne Marie. Now, you have to tell me say your last name for me. I'm like the worst with names.
Nada.
Nada?
Mm-hmm. Like Nada.
That is so funny because that is not, like, in my head, that's never how I've said it in my head.
I know. Well, it doesn't look like that at all. So I can't blame you.
So I'm here with Anne Marie Nada, and don't try to search for it phonetically because you won't find it. So Anne Marie, thank you for being on episode 100.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for having me. And congratulations for achieving this milestone. This is amazing.
Thank you. It really, I mean, I will certainly say thank you. And because it's when we think about big projects, big accomplishments, when we're on the front end of it, it's easy to think, just talking to Alan earlier about, if I were to at the starting gate said, you're going to do 100 episodes and you're not going to miss a week, I would say, how about we focus on like 20? That seems realistic. And the fact that we're recording the 100th episode, that is definitely an Everest for me. And it feels great. And knowing that you've been a part of really of the community, of the coaching programs. And so thank you for the congratulations. And I couldn't have done it without you and really everyone else who has been listening and has been an active member of the community. So thank you for that.
Well, actually, that's part of my congratulations is also a thank you for creating this community, Eric, because I don't know if you realized or even dreamed at the beginning that what could come along with this podcast is the community that you've created. And this community based on just acceptance and, minimizing that shame or moving away from the shame into full compassion and self-acceptance of where we're at, and supporting each other in living our lives in the best ways we can. It's so awesome.
When I first started the podcast and kind of created the online community, I did not realize how the community would really come to be. When I first started it, the idea of creating a community was, well, that's something that other podcasters do, and that kind of makes sense to do that. But it's taken on this whole form of itself that I truly couldn't even have dreamed of in my wildest imagination. And it's been incredible. I know Doug Harris, who we've had on the show and was part of one of the last coaching groups, he even said to me at the CHAD conference, he's like, it's got to be really incredible to see all those people who are here, basically because of the ADHD rewired community. And I was so grateful that he pointed that out to me because if I was being really honest, I hadn't really paused and reflected on just how great that really is, that I've brought people together, to better themselves, and in a very kind of almost storied way. It's that we have this community of people who want to improve themselves, but are also really growing in the areas of self-compassion, shame resiliency. And I just think it's just been such a neat opportunity and experience that it's just to think that I'm like this leader of this community. I sometimes like, wait, I'm not. How am I a leader of something? It's like I walk around at home in my underwear. It's.
Didn't need that visual, Eric.
But that's what I do. I sometimes say things that I probably shouldn't, and I do my best that I can, and I hope you guys forgive me for when I say things that I shouldn't. Maybe I should edit that part.
No,
we'll leave it in.
Because that's part of what is so perfectly imperfect about this broadcast is that you bring humor, realism, and education to all of this, and you've infused that in your community. I have to say that I think this community has taken the shape that it has because of your leadership. And even if you're a somewhat, I don't want to say reluctant leader, but maybe reluctant to admit it or whatever the proper phrasing is for you.
Well, I got to explore that in my head for a while.
Yeah. Maybe we can do that another time if you wish. But really, I think you've reinforced that message in the community by both screening to have people come in. So we're all very aware of, hey, there are standards here of how we treat each other, how we communicate. And I'm just I feel like my life is better because I'm part of the ADHD reWired community. And I know that may sound like hyperbole, but really, I don't know. I feel like that I have more support, even though it's a virtual community. On any given day, at any given hour, I can go on my phone onto that great Facebook app and, just hang out with my peeps.
Well, that's awesome to just hear that. So thank you for sharing that. And Marie, do you have a favorite episode?
I have to be completely honest. I'm a sporadic listener to the podcast. I haven't really, I'm not a huge podcast listener.
Mm-hmm.
I used to do that when I drove more, and now that I don't drive as much, I'm not as frequent of a listener. But when I do, some that stand out were Deshawn's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the Deshawn Wirt,
mm-hmm.
And both hers and Casey Dixon's. For the reason that my former life was as an educator, and that's their background too. So when they told their stories, it really resonated with me, and we had some commonalities that I just found very inspiring. Especially when I listened to Deshawn's, because I was at the beginning of my journey then, and I really appreciated hearing how she explained her transition and the flow of her life. I don't know. It was just inspiring to me, having, I think, a similar path with different circumstances. Anyway, I'm muddling my way through this, but just to hear,
you're doing great.
Well, I think there's something to be said for shining your light wherever you're at on your path, because it can serve as a beacon to others who maybe are at a place where you were. And that goes for anywhere along the path. There's never a finishing point, but just, companions on the journey to get a little bit, woo-woo about it. But
so then
anyway.
what does it mean, kind of going on that theme? What does it mean then for you to get your ADHD rewired?
Oh, I'm going to say something that's along a theme of something that's already been said. But for me, having ADHD undiagnosed for so long, there's been a huge shame component of it for me that I've really worked through quite a bit of it. But, there are little residual pieces that keep coming through that I continue to work on. But I would say this year, And ADHD rewired was a big part of my year this year. I've really moved more into acceptance and self-compassion. And so, in the words of another speaker earlier, just not using that negative voice with myself as much, not beating myself up as much when I have these, ADHD moments. And I've learned some strategies that kind of give that preemptive strike so there aren't as many of those moments. But when they do happen, then it's like, oh, okay, well, oh, there it is again. Okay, well, let's keep moving on. And, there isn't the continual self-recrimination. There's a lot more compassion.
Would you mind sharing whether it's from a podcast episode that you can recall, something from the community, or even as a member of one of the coaching groups? Is there a specific tip or strategy that you learned as a part of ADHD rewired, no matter what part of ADHD rewired it was from, but a specific tip or strategy that you are still using today?
I would have to say that with the ADHD rewired coaching and accountability group, it was so helpful being part of a group rather than just one-on-one, even because hearing from others how they approached planning just added to what you were already teaching. I walked away with tools and continue to refine. So it's not like I got it and woohoo, that's it. But it was a great place to learn many strategies to break down some of those larger tasks. It created a huge self-awareness for me that I was pretty good at accomplishing day-to-day things. But with the long-term planning, I tended to wait until it got to be a day-to-day thing and crunch time to make it happen. So I really learned some great mind mapping tools and then breaking down larger tasks, larger projects into accomplished or smaller ways to accomplish them all along.
Great. Well, I'm going to ask you one final question before we get Brendan on here. I'm going to open the suggestion box. Would you like to place anything inside?
I'm pulling a blank, Eric. I had an answer earlier and it's gone. Sorry. I'll have to email it to you.
If you think of it, you can always pop it in the chat while we're doing this recording. Anne-Marie, thank you so much for coming on. And you still owe me a whole episode. You're coming on as a guest.
You got it. Hold me to it, mister. Accountability. Let's go.
All right. We know how powerful that is. Thank you so much.
And I wanted other people to have the same or similar experience, that their whole lives could change, because that diagnosis changed my life for the better.
I'm coming not only as a professional in the field, but I have ADHD myself, and am the poster child of every sleep disorder and issue that's out there. I have severe sleep apnea. I, as a kid, was a sleepwalker and a sleep talker. I have had many what's called sleep paralysis episodes, which if people have ever had them, your body is completely paralyzed when you wake up.
Sometimes when we have the anxiety along with the ADHD, which is very, very common, and it's oftentimes sort of a borderline of almost an obsessive compulsive type of anxiety, which a lot of us have, that it can be helpful to actually treat that with some form of an antidepressant that also has anti-anxiety qualities to it.
If we're going to talk about the risks and side effects of taking ADHD medication, we also have to talk about the risks and side effects of not medicating.
I am here with Brendan Mahan. How'd I do?
Mahan, but whatever. It wouldn't be my last name if people weren't screwing it up.
And it wouldn't be ADHD rewired if I got your name correctly on the first try, even though I already struggled through this having you on before.
Yeah. And we practiced ahead of time.
We did, and it still didn't matter.
Practice this time.
Yeah. So, it's what does that teach you? Certain things, just forgive yourself for, because it's not going to get any better.
Yeah, there's no shame.
So, Brendan, speaking of, I want to kind of dig in a little bit with you. Through your journey of being part of the ADHD rewired community, part of the coaching group, and as a listener to the podcast. How long have you been listening to the podcast for?
Over a year. Not sure exactly.
Okay. Did you start at the beginning, or did you kind of start?
I didn't. I came in like 2 or 3 episodes before ADHD at 55 miles an hour, which I'm suspicious of the 55 miles an hour thing because you have ADHD. So I'm thinking like 70. But but I came in a little before then. And I only remember that because I missed that one. And then all of a sudden everybody was talking about it. And I was like, what? How did I not hear that? And I went back.
All right. So since then, you've been listening pretty regularly?
Yeah, I have the same problem that some other people have mentioned where I'm not driving as much as I used to. So my podcast listening has not been as consistent as it once was. But I think I'm mostly caught up now.
I know when I stopped driving, I stopped listening to podcasts as often, but then I've kind of reworked it back into my workout routine and like weekend kind of house projects. So yeah, without having that time, it's hard to make the time to listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
So when you do listen, though, where do you listen?
In the car.
In the car. Okay.
Just wherever I'm driving. And half the time it's like I listen to the first half and then I get to wherever I am and then I listen to the second half, which is nice because it lets me process stuff. Like if I'll run errands, I'll be like, I'm going to the supermarket. So I drive for all of 5 minutes and I listen to like the beginning.
Awesome.
And I shop and then I drive home or whatever. So
do you have a favorite episode?
I have favorite guests.
Okay, yeah, let's go there then.
If that's fair.
Sure is.
Ryan McRae, I listened to him and I was like, I want to meet this guy. Like, I completely want to hang out with him. Because a lot of what he said was right in line with my coaching and what I talk to my clients about.
Mm-hmm.
Except for the fact that he didn't sort of lean as heavily on emotions as I do. And he was sort of like, you either do it or you don't. And emotions don't seem to matter to him so much. And I really disagree with that. But beyond that, all of his strategies and all of his processing and all that stuff, I was like, I'm right there with this guy. So hopefully
and Ryan McRae is, we had him for like 4 episodes in a row as the ADHD nerd, and he's been on twice for full-length episodes. Yeah, I really like his delivery style because I've seen him. I invited him to one of my local chat meetings to present, and I really just enjoy how he delivers it in a very kind of just nuts and bolts, not overly technical kind of way. So Ryan McRae,
right.
Who else?
Unsurprisingly, Alan Brown's good. And I like Ari Tuckman because that's a little brave, to go off and be like, let's just talk about ADHD and sex. That there's a little bit of a risk there that you're taking that I have to compliment you on for being willing to take that risk. And overall for the fact that you've hit 100 episodes and the effort and focus that takes to reach this milestone is impressive, and it's humbling for me, and I'm not even you. Like, I can do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, because we've talked about trying to implement a new strategy, right? And how you get bored with it and you stop doing it, and then a little while later you maybe remember that you should get back to your notebook or whatever. And running a podcast on a weekly basis is not that dissimilar to that. There had to have been a point when you were like, I'm so done. I'm so good with this. I don't want to do it. Hit that. That hasn't happened.
No, in fact, in the very beginning, if I was talking earlier about this, where if someone say, "Well, do you think you're going to do 100 episodes?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not committing to that." If someone said, "Do you think you're going to get to 200?" I could say, "Yeah, I absolutely think I'm going to get to 200." The thought of not doing a podcast. That scares the hell out of me. I love podcasting.
Because you made it a habit.
Oh my, it's not, it's fun. It's play. And I've figured out I get help with some of the post-production of it. And, that's something that I'm even in the next year to come, I'm going to be hopefully building a team to have even more help with some of the other administrative pieces of, scheduling and logistics.
I have a friend of mine who likes to call those tasks important.
Oh, yeah? What's his name?
Eric Tivers. Have you heard of him?
I think so. Doesn't he have a podcast? I don't know.
He does. He's a pretty awesome guy.
Oh, that was kind of awkward. All right. So, totally just lost my train of thought in the awkwardness of
I derailed Eric.
Yeah, it's not hard to do. Or just, we're talking about just podcasting and the success of 100 episodes.
Yeah.
We sometimes talk about all the things that we do, and I think with people with ADHD, I forgot if I mentioned on this podcast or someone else's podcast, but I talked about the idea of, people with ADHD, we created the slash when it comes to job title, so it's, I'm a therapist / coach / podcaster / tech enthusiast, so all these different things, but podcaster, I love this medium. It's to be able to have these conversations with people. And they're, I think one of the cool things about podcasting, doing an interview show, is that it's a very intimate setting. And then you get to listen to, typically two people, myself and right now you, having this intimate conversation, and then you get to be a part of it. And I love that it's this long form content, and that, with podcasts, I know that some people say your podcast is too long. I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
It's because
just listen to it in pieces.
You can push pause. You can come back to it. You can. So, but I like this forum. Just like I do with my coaching group, I created the coaching groups that I would want for myself. I created the podcast that I would want to listen to myself.
Awesome.
So let me ask you this: are there specific tips or strategies that you have gained from either the particular episode, or just that you can recall from the past, or even from coaching group or the community?
So the one that I like the most, and that I've not only used for myself, but have shared the most with other people, is the notion of, like, the voice in your head that's like, you're terrible and you're never going to amount to anything, and why do you even try? Like, that voice, giving that voice a name, and a name that you're not particularly fond of, and then thanking it for its input and moving on. Like, that's such an awesome idea. And that came up in the coaching.
What's your guy's name?
It kind of dances around a little bit. Like, I for a little while the name was Zach. And I don't know why. I think it's because, like, Saved by the Bell or whatever. But even that, the voice is so much quieter now that I don't even think about the name anymore.
Does
that make sense?
It does. It does make sense, because I can completely relate to that, as having once named my voice, and now I have no idea what its name was. So yeah, I absolutely can relate to that. But then again, I'm really bad with names, so that doesn't really say anything about the strategy. All right, so let me ask you this. So two more things I want to ask you. I'm going to open up the suggestion box. Let's start there, and then I'm going to ask you the rewired question. So
done. So my suggestion, because I have one, is addiction. I've been working sort of peripherally around addiction recently. And I feel pretty strongly that a decent number of people who are suffering with addiction, and let me withdraw and rephrase. I feel pretty strongly that people 5 years from now who will be suffering from addiction, if we can get to them now and help them understand their ADHD and how it works, we can keep them from going down that road by preventing it early, by giving them strategies that mean they don't self-medicate.
That's a powerful suggestion. And I'll share too, and I think I may have shared on one prior podcast, and I think because you're right, Brian, I think that deserves more attention, and I think part of maybe why I maybe haven't focused there is I lost a very good friend to addiction.
Oh, that's right.
And so I think for me, because I'm just feeling myself, emotionally thinking about that right now, and I'm kind of getting, I can feel my face getting flush. That it's a hard, topic for me to really get into. It doesn't mean that I shouldn't get into it because it's hard. It's probably even more reason to get into it. But yeah, I think that is something that we will hear on an upcoming podcast. Do you have anyone that you really like in that field that you think I should bring on?
No, I work with a woman named Amy Leone who's fantastic, but she's not an ADHD person.
Okay.
I'm her ADHD person.
Okay.
But she's big into it, works almost exclusively with people with addiction. I shouldn't say that, but that's mainly how I know her, is through her work with addiction. And she's spearheading the opiate stuff, all the opiate addiction that's going on. She's spearheading it in sort of central Massachusetts and really Massachusetts in general. She's working pretty hard.
Okay, well, I definitely appreciate that suggestion, and it's definitely one that we'll take. And so,
and I understand my mom was an alcoholic, so I'm with you.
Yeah, so it's there's certain things where I want to be at a certain place, I guess, emotionally, because it's just, I suppose that it's okay for me to cry in an episode because I'm pretty sure I've done it before. I'm no stranger to crying. But before I make you cry, can you tell me when you think about the idea of getting your ADHD rewired, what does that mean to you?
So I have two answers to that. One is as a person who works with ADHD, and one is as a person who has it, and sort of a little bit to working with it too. So as a professional, since joining your coaching group and meeting you and going on your podcast and all that kind of stuff, and joining the ADHD Rewired group, I've become much more in tune with the ADHD community in the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
And that's left me feeling more like a professional than I did previously. And to the point that like I took the risk and pitched a workshop for the ADHD Coaches Organization conference that's coming up, and I'm presenting there.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm pretty excited about it.
That's awesome.
And I don't know that I would have done that had it not been for joining your coaching group and being exposed to this wider world of ADHD people.
Okay. And the other?
And the other one is connected to a phrase that's been going on. You know me and my phrases.
I love your phrases.
A phrase that I've been using a lot recently, which is 10% better. Like, just be 10% better.
Yeah.
It's not an all or nothing game. Just be 10% better. And the tool that I've been using to be 10% better a lot recently is your model of planning, doing, and then cleaning up or processing, that end part that we don't do. Like, we maybe plan, we always do, and then there's something else that's supposed to happen. And you really spelled that out and then there's this third part of cleaning up or processing or putting things away or whatever the situation may be. And I've been much more mindful of that third component of late, and awesome. It's making everything easier.
It's amazing how when we get that little nugget that helps us think about something we're doing just a little bit differently, how it just changes how we approach specific tasks.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh, that's great.
And then if I can share with you my favorite part of ADHD Rewired.
Oh, please do.
The podcast. My favorite part, and this is something I get in most podcasts, is audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Such an earworm.
I was waiting for the harmony. Thank you for that. And of course, since you set me up for it, and you mentioned 10% Happier, which is a audiobook by Dan Harris about his exploration into mindfulness.
I stole it from that book.
Yeah, no, that's what made me think about it. So you can get your free audio book trial at audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Brendan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're gonna take a quick break here, and then we are going to come back with our next guest.
audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired for your free download. Trial.com/ADHD Rewired. Go to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired for your free audiobook download.
I really do know how it can be to think and think and think and actually decide and then not take action. I am very acquainted with this feeling. It's like this heavy feeling of shame, and then it just takes up this mental space. I wish I wasn't so well acquainted with that feeling, but I am. So I can tell you this. It only takes a few minutes to schedule your screening call. And together you and I will decide if this group is right for you. Go to coachingrewired.com to schedule your 20-minute screening. Don't wait. The next group won't be until May. It's time to invest in you. Learn, grow, and connect. Join us for the next ADHD rewired coaching and accountability group and prepare to get your ADHD rewired. We have here Kristen White. Welcome to the 100th episode of ADHD Rewired.
Yay! Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for being willing to participate in this. So unlike a lot of my past guests that I've had on this show today, I don't really know much about you, although I did get to talk to you after our webinar recently, and you also told me that we talked like 3 years ago. Full disclosure, no memory of that, but I want to welcome. I'm sure it was a great conversation. So
I'm the one that told you I thought I was talking to a celebrity.
And I remember you telling me
May
that.
May 28th, 14.
Oh man, she has it written down.
I had the date on my notes I was taking. So,
awesome.
And a binder with your name on it. So no worries. It's
a
nothing.
Binder with my name on it.
I had to look it up.
I'm feeling like, I don't know if awkward or embarrassed is the right word. I don't know. The whole like thinking of what is it?
Flattered.
Flat. That actually is the word I was looking for. It just wasn't coming to me.
I have like the binder has your to-do charts with the Super Mario, of course. All your worksheets and all the show notes are in a document that I keep adding to the binder, and then on top is our speaking notes.
Holy crap! You're like a super fan.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I started listening by chance when I looked up ADHD podcast for a 3-hour trip, and it just happened to be the week you uploaded your first 4 episodes. So I got in right. It just happened to be that. I'm like, oh my God, who's this guy? Like what? It was totally coincidental that I found you.
So you've been listening from the beginning.
April 14, you actually released an episode 4/14/14, which is the day I quit smoking.
Oh, that's awesome.
41414.
That is so cool. So it's great to talk to people who have been listening from the beginning. So tell me, what has been your thoughts because the show certainly has evolved from the beginning.
Yeah.
What have been your thoughts of the evolution of the podcast?
I continue to be impressed. Kind of goes back to like what Jennifer says. Every time it's a little more relatable. Like I feel a little less alone. It's like, okay, I'm not crazy. There's a lot of other people out there. Apparently I'm just surrounded by, the a-holes that who, don't get it. And unfortunately, including my family, not calling them a-holes, but they don't believe in mental health or ADHD
sorry.
So it makes it a little more difficult. So it's kind of nice to meet a bunch of people that, we're in the same tribe, shiny tribe.
the same shiny tribe.
Yeah.
Do you have, do you have any like favorite episodes that you can recall?
Not favorite episodes. There's some favorite moments. And what I had brought up to you before was a favorite tip. But one of my favorite moments, it was one of the first episodes when you had a list of 7 things and it turned into a list of 10 things. And it just made me laugh. Like, actually, no, 12, I think. But it just the way you talk and just you're relatable. It's, you're a human being and you're just awesome. And the way you teach is awesome. I know people were kind of joking the other day about, oh, you're like an Apple commercial, but I've learned a lot from you as far as that goes. Like I have an iMac, an iPad, an iPhone, and I just remembered I have this little guy and it's a Nano.
Yeah.
And so this is what I use for my podcasts. You can't
so
really
you listen. That's so cool. So I've never seen my podcast logo on a Nano. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's got a clip built in. So like I can do, it's a clip built in. So I can save your podcast and listen to them whenever I want. With not just driving, like it just clips to me and I can just listen to like earlier when I was folding laundry. I picked a random episode. It actually was the one 46, I think. It says excel in anything.
With Oz, who's actually, I know, listening right now.
Oh my gosh, hi, oh my gosh, you're so awesome. I can relate so much with him. He's so cool. I guess I could say that's a favorite right at the moment, but you know how things change quite often.
I think he's not. Oh, I think he left. I was going to see if you wanted jump on because he actually hopped on this morning for this morning's recording. So, or for the podcast listener, you heard him earlier. So, okay. Well, that's it.
I was going into Apple. That was my number one. The thing you taught me to use my resources. Like what was brought up the other day was the location-based reminders.
Mm-hmm.
I refused to use Siri, which is the thing I had. Like, I'm like, this is so stupid. I'm never going to use this. And you introduced me to Siri, basically. And this was back, almost 2 years ago now in April. And it's the best thing ever. I use it for Walmart a lot for my grandma because I live with her. And it'll tell me every time I drive by Walmart, which is often until I check it off, it'll remind me. And when I get home, lots of stuff is when I get home, until I check it off, it will hound me when I'm home. And it's probably one of the greatest things ever because I will forget. I will leave home and come back 4 times and still forget.
That's awesome. I'm actually, I know that you mentioned that at the webinar. And so I think that planted the seed because I just recorded something for, I think it would have been episode 98 where I do a little Siri demo again. Because I think you reminded me that was helpful for you. So I haven't done that in quite some time.
Yeah, I used to do it like at the beginning of every episode. And I remember you would just talk to Siri at the beginning or end of the episode. And it was so impressive. I'm still impressed by it. But also, you're really good with, you are an Apple fan, but you also review everything for Android and just as in depth for the Android users. And that's really cool too. But I like Apple. I'm an Apple geek like you.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
I think I walked right into that one.
So,
I like to just say they all communicate together. They all have the same information.
Yeah, that's certainly a having all the devices communicate is certainly very, very helpful. So let me open up the suggestion box for a moment.
Okay. I don't have any. Like, I actually look forward to the next episode, like to see what you've come up with because. I'm sure I have a lot of thoughts, but they never quite make it to paper in time before I finish the thought, and then the next one's taken over. Like I've gotten to a point where I have like about 3-foot radius before I forget what I'm doing. But I'm working on it.
That probably brings me to then my last question here is, when you talk about and think about getting your ADHD rewired, what does that mean to you?
Oh gosh. I guess time blindness. I'd like to be able to understand time. I think I'd be the queen of time blindness. I don't know. I just thought of something actually that I wanted to share with you one time. I was going to email it to you, but I was thinking, you have ADHD when you have more alarms set for bedtime than to wake up.
That's good. Oh, I like that.
And I thought of you. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to laugh his butt off.
No, that's great. That's great. And have crazy alarms to get yourself to go to bed with that.
Yeah. And somehow it's like there's a app. I don't know if it was you. I think it may have been you. It's called 2Bed. It's just a very simple app. Yeah. It just goes off half an hour before your bedtime and at bedtime. And you can set it for how many, what time, every day of the week.
2Bed. Cool. Yeah. I've actually not heard of that one.
Oh, okay.
So it was
super simple.
Cool. Well, Kristen, thank you so much for coming on, being a super fan. I'd love to see that binder sometime. And
yes, I will bring it into the Zoom party. I'll have it ready.
Awesome. So, Gibson, I have a question for you.
What's the question?
So, do you know what I do, like my job?
What do you do? Like your job?
What do you think I do? So, you're at my office right now.
So, you interview podcasts?
Yeah, it's part of what I do. I interview people on my podcast. Do you know what else I do?
What? What else?
What do you think?
I don't know.
No clue?
No clue. No clue at all.
Am I a powerful executive in charge of a giant gumball factory?
No.
No? You would know if I did that, wouldn't you?
I would know. That would be funny.
Do I have a fun office?
Yes.
Yeah, what's fun about my office?
You bulb it.
I have a ball pit in my office. It's technically not mine, but yeah, we get to play in it. We have Jessica Freeland. Thank you for coming on the show. I didn't mess that name up, did I?
Yeah, my last name's really easy to pronounce.
It sounds just how it looks.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you for having an easy name for me to not screw up. I can usually get one of them right.
You can thank my parents.
So I want to, well, first of all, I want to welcome you and onto episode 100. Tell us just a little bit about who you are and how you listen to the podcast. And yeah.
I started out on the podcast downloading it from iTunes onto my little iPod. And
the old school way of listening to podcasts.
Old school way. And then you start talking about SoundCloud. So I actually now listen to that on SoundCloud. And how I listen to it more sporadically, but I listen to it when I build wire harnesses for some custom muscle cars. For the company my dad works for. Cool. So I'm definitely the part of the ADHD / group because I also train horses and work horses and
what other slashes do you have?
Oh gosh, I'm starting to start up my own training business for horses. I build wire harnesses for cars. I'm also a college student. I'm just about finishing up my degree in communications.
Wow.
I'm really finishing that up in April.
So how can I ask how old you are?
Hold on. 25.
25. I had to think about it. We might need to get that. We need some fact checking here. It's okay. There was certainly a point, I think it was last year, where I was telling people that I was like the wrong age for a good month before I realized, oh my gosh, I've been telling people that I'm like 33 or 34. It was like the wrong age. I was telling people for about a month until I realized.
I've been telling people I was 26 since November. I'll be 26 in March.
That's some generous rounding.
Yeah, my mom's been correcting me.
So, all right. So you mentioned about this wire harnesses on the car. I just have no idea what that even is.
Basically what they do is that the company was actually started by my cousin, a couple of my cousins. They basically brought back and modernized the old Trans Am muscle cars. And so my dad works there as the electrical department. And I actually started working there just cleaning stuff up and everything. But then in true ADHD fashion, I got done fast and I got bored. And I went to my dad's like, all right, Dad, what else do you want me to do? And he's like, all right, do this. So he just got me on it and never done anything like that before. So I just started doing it and apparently I'm good at it.
Wow.
I don't know. So yeah. And basically the wire harnesses are for the different headlights, the cameras, cause they have like backup cameras and stuff on it and just doing all that.
So if you were to make up an analogy on the spot, since you're a budding communications major, so rewiring your ADHD is like building a car wire harness. How?
I would probably say rewiring my ADHD is more like because I used to tell my parents that my ADHD is a lot like having a radio that's broken. That the volume doesn't work. The volume keeps going up and down by itself. The power button doesn't work, so you can't turn it off. And the tuner button doesn't work, so it's constantly sweeping all the channels. So probably rewiring my ADHD is like fixing some of those to. It's still glitchy. It doesn't completely work, but it works somewhat.
Did you figure out a way to reroute the audio so you can just
Yes.
bypass that altogether?
Yeah.
So do you have some favorite episodes?
Again, like I've been kind of listening sporadically, but I think my favorite ones have been with Ryan, the ADHD nerd. As a college student, listening to his, that really spurred a lot of the productivity and really getting into that and figuring that out. And probably the most interesting one was the ADHD and sex.
Yeah.
And just listening to that and how that corresponds with everything. That was pretty cool to listen to.
So what were you were there some surprise findings in that for you?
So I can't remember a lot of it now, but some of the studies that he was talking about was really interesting to find out. Like, I guess some of the findings weren't that surprising when you look at it from the ADHD perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of it was like, oh wow, huh. That is interesting.
Okay. All right. So let me ask this. I'm looking at, I have a little cheat sheet of questions that I'm looking at. Cause I just had this experience of, since I haven't really done a format quite like this, I had the thought of like, wait, did I already ask you this, or was that my last guest that I just talked to? So forgive me if I'm repeating questions. Oh man, I'm gonna have to give Richard, my editor, a lot of time with this episode here. Let me open up the suggestion box. Okay. Do you have any suggestions for ADHD rewired, whether it's the podcast, the community, or anything of the rewired kind of brand?
Maybe like I've been really interested in more of the like productivity and getting into that, especially as like a college student. Because I'm also thinking of going for a master's in life coaching. That was like, you've been my inspiration of doing that, trying to figure out whether I want to do the life coach class through my school or go more into the ADHD. But so that, but also maybe seeing what's going on ADHD wise for like alternative therapies, like equine therapy or something.
Okay.
I know that some people do that for autism,
mm-hmm.
special needs and autism.
Mm-hmm. And so clinically, I've seen that to be effective. I know the research out there is sporadic at best on the effectiveness. And that is a really, I'm glad that you threw that in the suggestion box, because it's been something that I've been sort of deliberate on in the sense of not really talking about that, because I think that there is there's so much snake oil out there, and so I've really been trying to really highlight science, really like credible science-based interventions.
Yeah.
And I go back and forth on it sometimes on, bringing, a guest expert to talk about some of these other things. I just think that there is still a big gap of what we know, what the science says, and what the just the public knows. So from I guess you can call it from an editorial standpoint of what I'm trying to deliver, I really try to stay aligned with, kind of more to the hard science.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested to know if other people have thoughts on that. I know that we talked a little bit about nutrition in the past, and even for me, I was like, do I really want to talk about nutrition? I think that's sort of harmless. So yeah, that was my thought on your suggestion, and I will certainly. You're not the first person who has suggested that, so I do appreciate that. Did I ask you your favorite thing or thing that you've learned, or tip or strategy that you use that you learned from the podcast?
Actually, probably the most I've learned from recently that I remember is from the productivity webinar that I also participated in. I think it was like a couple of weeks ago or so. And I started like doing, I started figuring out the bullet journaling and starting that. And I also started doing like some of the task manager apps. One of them that you suggested was like the Epic Win app, the one that applies it. And so that was like really fun and simple. And I've been having a lot of fun with that one.
Are you still using it then?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I love it because, my phone actually blows itself up when I don't do something right away, because one of the things I constantly forget is to take my nutritional supplements to help not only with my ADHD, but I also have some other health issues, going on, but I always forget to take my supplements. So it helps me remember to take my supplements because my phone blows up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So, I'm going to ask you one other question. I was sort of asking it earlier, but, we'll finish it up with this question. And that is, how do you get your ADHD rewired?
How do I get my ADHD rewired? Like a lot of it has come from listening to the podcast and being within the community. I actually, even though I was actually diagnosed, I guess, fairly early. I was diagnosed when I was 11 years old, but I really didn't start actively looking for people who are ADHD like myself until probably about a couple of years ago. And so when I started looking for those support groups and learning more about my ADHD and what's really going on inside my head, it's really opened up some, I guess, thought processes that's like, hey, no, this is kind of like that whole negativity thing that I didn't realize was actually going on, because my parents have always been supportive of it. They've always sought out ways to help me cope because I'm unmedicated, but they've always helped to find ways to cope with my ADHD and find ways to do it. So I never realized that there was actually negativity going on. So I guess between the different support groups and the ADHD group, reWired group, and the podcast, that's really helped me come to terms with that and be a little more accepting of my ADHD.
And that is certainly one of the I think most extraordinarily important parts of this podcast. That it really is. It's more than just a podcast. We really are a community. And Jessica, I'm just grateful that you are a part of it. Thanks for joining me on the 100th episode. Any final thoughts before we bring the next person on?
Just congratulations, and I look forward to hearing more podcasts.
The next 100 podcasts, right?
Yep, exactly. I
right,
also want to say, I want to tell Kristen, if she's still on, I loved her shirt. I loved I think it was like the glittery Batman shirt. Yes, it was awesome.
It's pretty awesome. I noticed that too. I was slightly distracted by it, but I was able to still maintain my focus. So thank you so much.
What you're going to put on your tombstone, if you go before me, I'm going to write finally done. I have t-shirts that say DONE is my favorite 4-letter word.
Playing with other people is way more fun than playing with yourself.
I know that I can turn a 5-minute conversation into an hour. I can make time expand. I do not just make things disappear.
Well, we got Rob D. Toro. How'd I do? Did I say
Actually, you nailed it.
Yeah?
Everyone kind of stuffs that up. Or I get Di as my middle name. So people seem to think that I've got Diana as a middle name and my surname's just Toro. It's just a double barrel last name for everyone out there. But what I usually tell them is it's like Robert De Niro, right? He's got two words in his last name.
That's pretty slick that you can compare yourself using the name to Robert De Niro.
Yeah, well, it's pretty close, I think. Well,
so I want to welcome you. Now, what time is it where you are?
I love playing this game. Okay, so normally I live in Canberra, Australia, which is the capital. And in Canberra, it is 12:25 in the afternoon on Tuesday the 5th. But I'm currently on a working vacation, so my time zone is actually different again. But only by an hour.
So you're like a day and a half ahead of us, I think.
Just about, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, if not more.
Well, I want to welcome you again. So I know that we got to chat after the webinar. So I want to just give you the opportunity to kind of share a little bit with us of how ADHD rewired has really impacted your life. What maybe we can talk about specific episodes that you really have enjoyed. So kind of just take us through your listening experience of ADHD rewired, being part of the community, and so on.
Sure thing. Okay, so my diagnosis happened actually, ironically, during ADHD Awareness Month, which was October of this year. So I kind of just devoured podcasts from, I think it was the 7th of October was when I got the formal diagnosis. And yours is the 3rd or 4th podcast I came across. And I started from the start, and that's what I tend to do. And I've just sort of consumed, and I get to use. I have the benefit of being able to work from home, and I often travel interstate on long car trips. So it was quite easy to get through, 99 or almost episodes, and so it was quite easy to catch up. And I think I came up to date about 3 weeks ago. So I've actually was able to see your progression and the development of the podcast quite sort of in a crucible there, because between episode 1 and episode 80 there was only a couple of weeks that passed for me, but for you it was a year and a half or so.
So you've had what will be now about 100 episodes of the podcast in what, like 3 months?
Yeah, look, even less, because I think I didn't start listening to you till about November. So
wow.
Yeah. So you've been in my ears quite a lot.
And what's sticking for you from what you've heard?
I've got quite a few favorite episodes that we went through. A lot of it has sort of been around, and I guess the same as everyone that's sort of jumped on here, everyone sort of flagged you. The ones that they like have been around and inspired by Brené Brown, around shame and vulnerability. But there's so many great ones. Actually, the last one that to date to air with Laurie Depard about managing your meds. You asked a lot of questions for you that I wanted to ask for me as well, because it's been 6 weeks since I've been put on medication, and I know it's quite a bit of a difference, but a lot of the questions were actually the same. Other ones that come to mind are the one about the wall of awful. Nutrition. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, all the nutrition-based ones, particularly Carl Piltz, who I listen to now as well, and the one with, I think it was Roberto Olivaria. That's the one. Yeah, both really fascinating. Oh my God, the sex one with Ari Tuckman. I think I said on the community, I'm just going to pretend and, listen in casually, but no, obviously it's highly fascinating for us with ADHD, I think. So, but I think the one that got me hooked the most was the one with, I think it was Jenny Friedman.
Mm-hmm. The C and ADHD podcast.
Yeah. And where she sort of shared a personal story, really put the emphasis on the whole Me Too and the importance of community and growth. And it was, you've been advertising your Facebook community for the 30 or so episodes before that, and I just thought, no, this is it. I have to join. And that was sort of when I jumped on and sent you the request. But the next one too, with Jerry Mills, the songs.
I loved that episode. Oh man.
I go back and listen to that often. So I'll go back and I'll just skip through, and I kind of got a marker where I know where a couple of my favorite songs were, and they're just they're just brilliant. And I think communicating through music is very important and a powerful tool that we have. And I always find that I can really, to my advantage, use music to dictate my moods and stuff like that. And Jerry just sort of hit home with the beautiful storytelling. Yeah.
I got to tell you, from the perspective of, doing the podcast, that was probably one of the most fun and enjoyable episodes to just be a part of recording. You know, we were in this like back room at the CHAD conference. I think it was a CHAD conference, and I was getting like my own personal concert. It was awesome. And his music is just so powerful. It's just, it's musical storytelling, and it's so good. Yeah, no, I'm glad that you like that one.
Look, like I said, there's a list there of, I guess, half a dozen of just ones that sort of really stood out to me. But I know the second we just connect, I'm going to think, oh man, there's another 3 that I want to mention. But they've all been good, and I really like how they all kind of touch on a lot of different things, and you've got a lot of different sort of perspectives out there. And but the one thing that is common across all of them is that everyone wants to help, and everyone wants to help others grow. And whilst some of you are making a business out of this, it's come from a good place, and it's coming from a place of wanting to give back, and coming back again to that sense of community is this is sort of how we survive, because I really believe that the reason that we're here on this earth is for connection and helping us grow. So having that has been the one thing for me that has been able to keep the momentum of, yeah, we can do this, because a lot of people that get the diagnosis, there's going to be the few that sort of, they crumble a little bit and they sort of say, well, why me? Or, and they don't really want to work with it. But I found, across the community and those that you've sort of brought together, it's been a resounding, these people want to tackle this head on. And it's been really good to come across these that are in the industry that kind of promote that as well, So it's been really, really refreshing.
Awesome. Would you mind sharing really quickly? You shared with me when we were talking last week about your experience going to see a doctor to get medication.
Yeah.
What's your commute like to go see your doctor?
Okay, I'll paint a picture. So I live in the capital of Australia, and it's actually very similar to DC, where we've got about 370,000 people there, and it's mostly government. 1 in 3 people work in government there. And the thing is about it is that it's not a major city, and there isn't a lot of, particularly from a medicinal point, there's not a lot of practicing psychiatrists. So there's 3 ones that work with adults there with ADHD, and 2 of them only are the ones that have the open books. So one of them is about to retire, and neither of them could see me for 6 months. So I have to drive to the nearest major city, which is Sydney. And so that's about, and we did the conversion for your crowd. It's 190 miles and each way.
So you have to go 190 miles each way, and then when you take into the account, was it the doctor's mess up or your mess up on getting the wrong day?
No. Okay. So the first appointment, they booked me in with someone who isn't trained in adult ADHD, which meant that they weren't able to prescribe stimulant medication. So I did the 190 mile each way trip. I got there and they just said, "I'm really sorry, you have to come back in 2 days." So,
that's like painful to think about. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, look, I didn't really have too much choice. In fact, that's actually where I caught up the last amount to date with your episodes. So, look, silver lining and everything, I think.
So, speaking of the silver lining, let's finish up with this. And how do you get your ADHD rewired?
Well, look, I think it's not something that I can sort of tap into. It's been a gradual process, and that's really, again, come from the sense of I'm not alone, and there's me too, and we're all in this together. And from the people that have jumped on here, it seems a lot of people are sort of sporadic listeners, and I think that kind of works for them. And I'm kind of at the other end of the bell curve where I'll jump in head first. And I think because I've kept the momentum up, and it's been really sort of invigorating to be part of the community and jump on the Facebook group and see that, the tips and strategies, but also the realness and the human aspect, and the those that sort of having these real moments, and they think, hey, I just need to share something for a minute. That has been what rewires me, through the strengths and through the difficulties with each other, that we're all in this together. I'm constantly rewired. I don't ever want to sort of think that there's going to be a point where I'm not. And, we've got to give you credit for a lot of that, Eric, because we're all here together because of you. You're getting these hundreds of, thousands of downloads across, this time period, but it wouldn't have started if it wasn't for you. And I think I shared with you actually, when we spoke last week, the first episode I listened to, we had a lot of people say, oh, look, I didn't believe that you had ADHD until I listened to episode 47, which was the ADHD at 55 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I listened to the first episode, I thought, oh man, this guy's scattered. Of course he has ADHD. This is going to be interesting. I'll see how long this lasts. And I'm so glad to be here with you at episode 100. It's been an honor.
Oh, it's been an honor to have you on. So thank you so much. And we'll see you in the community. So lots of people listen to your daddy.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think there's something that people don't know about me that you want to tell them?
Yes.
What is it?
No. I want to tell them there's something don't know about me.
Okay. What do you think they don't know about you?
I like numbers. That's what I don't think they think about me.
Buddy, I think it may have come up in conversation. I mentioned that you might like numbers.
Yeah.
I think actually on this very episode, I may have mentioned it.
Oh.
Because my friend Tom, he drew out something that said the number 100. And then I even made a comment that my son would like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his son, it's me.
That's true. You're very quick to put those things together. Tommy.
Hey.
I've never called you Tommy before.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, hey, thanks. My father-in-law was trying to install a printer, and I was worried he was going to call me. But after I told you that, I realized that I never put the phone back on the hook when I threw it under my desk. So,
how are you, man?
Good, man. Good, real good.
I think that this you're the perfect person to close it out.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
So, 100 episodes. You've been around for really all of it, I think, right?
Yeah. I remember the first one was I think the one where you put the music I can't remember. It was like one of the early ones, but it was some motivation around probably the 6 to 13 range, I think.
And I think, Tom, that you, I don't think there is anybody who has been on my podcast more than you.
Well, that might be true. Yeah, but especially between me and Yvonne, yeah, we love coming on your. Yvonne had a great time. I love coming on your show. It's always fun. But one of the longest shows too. Because I was on episode, I think 34 was my first episode. The separate bedrooms, and then Yvonne was on for like 70. And I think 50. I know I was on 54. Car 54. Where are you? That's how I remember that. And then of course 50, and now 100. So.
And then if you include the episodes that you've been mentioned on, I mean you're.
Oh wow.
You're up there with Brene Brown.
Yeah, right. And you still got to 100 episodes in spite of it.
And I think what's really fun, Tom and I have genuinely become very, very good friends, really because of the podcast. And if we look at our personal lives, we probably could almost not be more different from each other, and yet we're like best friends. I mean, it's pretty awesome. So I'll tell you this right now, my brain is like going, I'm done, but I gotta find my reserves for you.
Okay.
So, maybe we can do this, Tom. Why don't you interview me here for this final portion?
Interview you?
Why not?
Okay. I'm actually not ready for an interview. Okay, first of all, I suck at it anyway, because I have very few guests on. I don't, and because I at first I thought that's what we do, but I don't really do a lot of guests. It's just me and Yvonne, and I don't know, the one, I don't know, you and I were good. Me and, I mean, there was, I don't know. I don't mean nothing against the guests. I've had all fantastic guests, but, like all 4 or 5 of them. But I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult to have guests. Don't ask me to interview you.
All right.
Just let me go through
I'll retract my
little cookie cutter questions everybody else got.
Is that a 100 that you've posted to on a sticky note there?
Yeah, while I was listening to the other people, I made that for you. Figured I'd hang it there. Thanks for noticing it. It's on a post-it note.
My son would really like that.
I'll send it to him.
He'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll mail it to him.
So, all right, Tom, tell me some of your favorite episodes.
I still really like episode 8, and I know I've mentioned that before, but that's and I didn't hear that one until you talked about it on another episode. You were talking to somebody about it, and you actually played a clip on it. And when you okay. This is there we go. Now I can't see the chat window.
Is that what was going on? I was noticing you're totally getting distracted.
Trying to do it on Blab, the show. Never again. I mean,
it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, I know. Episode 8, when you did the different voices for the different parts of the brain, I mean that was just really ballsy. Really did like that. I mean doing the different voices. I mean, it was just knowing you. I guess knowing you helped a lot with that. But that was one of them that and every now and then I will, when I'm in because I used to listen to podcasts when I'm on my lunch break at work, and I just put in whatever, and every now and then I'll go back to episode 8 and listen to it because it cracks me up now.
So if you have not listened to that, of course, you can go back and listen to it.
I recommend episode 8.
Maybe we can insert a brief clip from that right here. Let's do that.
Brief, very brief.
Dopamine, you are what powers my will. You are my willpower. Don't you know that?
That's a big responsibility to have. Don't you think that could be a problem? I know I'm not that dependable.
Well, I have some good news. I've been learning some strategies, and I think I have a few tricks that we could use so you stay around longer and more consistently.
And I really liked Maria Billings' show a lot that she was on, and of course, I think Oz Du Soleil, that was the first show I ever listened to more than once. I loved it. He just started out by saying, I have a lot of hats, but he didn't mean he does a lot of things. He meant he has a lot of hats. I mean, he was, and I just thought, I'm like, what was that the question? But and that just really cracked me up when he said that. And me and Yvonne were just dying laughing, listening to.
And he was on this episode earlier.
Oh, that'll be fun. Yeah, and I actually had him on. That was kind of a fun show to do about because we were both on submarines. So that was kind of a fun show with Oz. I mean, Lisa Feinberg's show was great, and of course Doug Harris was another one I really, really liked. That guy is awesome.
I forgot if it was you or if it was him that said about each other that like you guys are like brothers from another mother.
We could be. I mean, I don't know. He honestly, I would not be in a college room art class and the nude model doesn't show up, and then I can't see myself volunteering for such a thing. I mean, I will never forget that. Ever.
That was pretty extraordinary.
And it was cool. I love the picture of us at the Chad conference. It's one of my favorites when you laid across our laps when you couldn't speak. That was kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, you know, mostly the stories that talk about the people and not so much the studies and the science of it all. You know, those are the shows that I really like, Guy. And you know, I do listen to every show because you know, there's always the possibility you'll ask what I thought, and I have to be ready. But no, I listened to every show, and maybe one or two I didn't finish, but every show I listened to.
But you did tell me, Tom, that you sometimes fast forward through my promos and commercials.
I have, yeah, and I do. Sometimes I've got like a limited time for lunch, and I'm like, you know, I don't want to, you know, I want to hurry up and, you know, get to the show. So yeah, I skip through the, you know what you do.
So you never know what kind of surprises that you're missing. You know, it's because sometimes.
I know and I told you I'd start listening to them again. I just have, if I'm home listening, I don't bother getting up to switch it. But if I'm at work, it's like, you know, I hit the 15-second button. 15's he done? 15 he done? Okay, then I don't know. Well, I've heard them, but I mean, I think you've done some new ones, so I have to check back in.
You know, maybe you'll have to maybe in some upcoming mid rolls that I'll do, I'll have to just like randomly say your name in the middle of a sentence. Because if I do that once, I know you will listen to every single episode, the promos after that. Because I know how much time you like the sound of your name.
Should be episode 150 is the best of promos. Eric Tivers rewired the best of promos.
I probably should record
nothing
a
but
new
commercials,
jingle.
and then you can have a commercial about taking a break, and then for the break you can actually talk about a subject, and then you go right back to the show, which is commercial. You can try that.
Wow, that's.
I won't listen.
Oh man.
But hey, you know what? I will share one thing with you. You know, it like you were saying, there's, you know, for us to be so tight and so different, which is really cool. You know, I was a part of your accountability group, and you know, I did learn a lot of valuable things there because of some personal things that were going on with my son. You know, I couldn't really stick around for, you know, you know, I kind of bowed out, and I hated to do that, but it was unavoidable. But you know, Yvonne has a new job, and it's been, I mean, just really trying on her. It's part of the reasons why we haven't been doing as many. I mean, we're still doing the shows, but we haven't been doing as many shows. And you know,
is the most difficult part for Yvonne is that she's having a hard time keeping up with the ADHD rewired episodes?
You know, it's probably more than that, but no, it's just trying to learn everything that she's got to learn, because she's going to be a manager. And you know, I was listening to her, and I'd heard her say all that stuff before, you know, about how she was having a tough time, but I didn't really listen, you know. And you know, I did listen to her tonight, and you know, and I told her that, you know, it's really, you know, it's funny when we do the show, and it is, and it's all true, everything that we've ever discussed. But you know, it's really getting to a point where, you know, and then, you know, I was doing whatever I was doing the last time we were both off together, and then she ran out to the grocery store, you know, and you know, she's working like 50. I mean, I have a 40-hour job, but you know, she's working like 50 hours a week and still doing all this stuff. And, you know, I just couldn't take seeing that anymore. And, you know, I talked to her tonight and explained to her, you know, that I really did want her to put a lot of that stuff on me and that I could do it. She never would have asked me, to do it, but and she didn't. But I did ask her if I could do it, and I don't think there'd be a show if it wasn't for you and for ADHD Wired, and I really don't think that I would have stepped up to do that, because I wouldn't have believed that I could. But you see, now I really do.
Tom, it's really and I say this with all sincerity, I've seen you just grow as a person like so much just in the time that I've known you. And I mean, I can tell that I mean, one thing that I want everyone to know about Tom that I don't know if people know about you is you have one of the biggest hearts of anyone I've ever met. And so I can just see it and hear it in your voice. That with Yvonne working more and you stepping up to the plate, I think that is a new thing for you when it comes to doing something that you and I both would hate, shopping.
Oh yeah, particularly I'll have to do the grocery shopping and keep the house clean, and it's not, it's not as if I'm, have no job and it was a kept man, like is my lifelong dream to be as a kept man. But, because I would so do it in a heartbeat, but that's just not the situation. That's not the reality that I live in. So, I think if Yvonne had a clean house to come home to, I just think it would help a lot with her anxiety that she's had a pretty good handle on, but I can really just see the whole thing coming to a head at some point. And I'd hate to think that I could have avoided it or stopped it or prevented it. And I'm thrilled that, I have a group and a friend and a show that, and Eric, I've had, unlimited access to you for the past year, and it's been an incredible help to me in many ways. It's not something I really talk about on my show a lot, because that's just not the kind of show that I do. But it's every day, it's things are different, than they were a year ago. And I do appreciate you and this show and the community for that.
And I'm more than appreciative of you being a part of it. And Tom, it's been amazing just getting to know you and building this friendship. One day I'm going to read your book.
I know you are. I'm not worried about that, Eric. I mean, it's fun. It's fun to joke about. It'll almost be a sad thing. But you're okay, because it's not an easy read. So make sure you're ready.
That's what I hear. It's emotionally that it's tough to read.
Yeah.
So, Tom, I'm going to open up the suggestion box to you. Do you have any suggestions on anything that could improve the podcast?
I think you should talk about Brene Brown more. I mean, now I don't. I don't, Eric. I don't really have any suggestions. Any suggestions for you? I don't. I mean, it's like one of your other panelists. I can't remember who it was. I really do look forward to the the surprise. I don't. I mean, granted, we've had things that we've maybe little things plan on doing, or things you'll mention, but it's just, I always, but sometimes I don't, and sometimes I'll page you the night before, hey, who's on the show tomorrow? Or every now and then I'll ask for a link to hear the show early, because that's just one of the benefits of being Tom Nardone, I guess. So, is early. Oh, and I'll tell you one other cool thing that, probably this actually pretty much shocked me. It was one night, and I don't know what. Oh, I think you were.
I'm so afraid of what you're about to say.
No, don't be. Well, I mean, yeah, but I couldn't believe you did it. But you had been preparing all day for some 3-hour or 6-hour some amazingly long presentation you had to give, and you just couldn't wait on your editor or something, and you sent him your stuff, and you sent me a copy of the show and said, listen, I have no idea what I'm going to call the show. So listen, he's going to send it to you. Listen to it, figure out a title for it, and then just send it. Tell him what the title is, and then he'll go ahead and post it. And I'm thinking, so you're going to like wake up and find out what the name of your next episode is. So, I thought it was cool that you would have trusted me with such a thing. And I know that we probably talked a lot about titles, not so much now. I guess you just learned that it doesn't matter, or you've just been able to make some pretty good titles yourself. But that I always
combination of both.
I always enjoy trying to figure out what we're going to call a show. That's one of my favorite little back and forth, set them up, shoot them down conversations that we have. That's been a lot of fun. And you did
name the ADHD at 55 miles per hour.
That's right, I did. I named that one. That was my suggestion. That's exciting because that's a good show.
Well, Tom, maybe at some point in the future, you and I are going to. We talked about this, I think, earlier in the week. We're going to have a debate. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh, I am. I am on board. If you the science versus
yes. So
now, listen. You might. I mean, it's a recorded show, so it doesn't matter if it's a recorded show. If it was live, you should want to ask yourself, do I really want to go on a live broadcast and tangle ass with Tom Nardone about science? Now, if you do, then hey, I would love that.
But do you recall the twist of the debate?
Pardon me?
That I suggested this debate with a twist, because as you may or may not know, for listeners, that
I swear I'm not even lying. Today at work, I was going through how that show would begin. I mean, I honestly I can't even believe you're saying this. This is my dream guest spot on your show, a chance to be a splinter in the rail of your smooth running show.
No, but Tom, maybe you're forgetting a detail though. I'm wondering if you are. So so as you guys know, I'm very science minded. Tom thinks science is a bunch of hogwash.
I don't,
because he claims that you can make up a study to say anything. That's his claim.
Well, that's a fact.
So
anyway,
the proposal that I suggested to Tom is that Tom and I debate this issue, except Tom takes my perspective and I take Tom's perspective.
Now, how is that possible?
It's how we do it on the debate team. I'll let you think about that.
You were on the debate team, weren't you?
I was on a debate thing in grad school. It's structured arguing. I mean, it's.
We'll hammer this out. That'll be funny, man. That'll be a good show.
ADHD Rewired, episode 100. Can you do that?
Okay.
All right, let's hear you do it. ADHD
Rewired, episode 100.
I'll do it all together.
ADHD Rewired, episode 100.
I love you, buddy.
I love you too, Daddy.
All right, now go home with Mommy and earn some stars.
Okay, Daddy. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye for now.
For the ADHD and the BDHD podcast.
I don't know if you know that I hurt my back this weekend, my ribs. So
yeah,
I
saw
moved.
that. Yeah.
All right.
You and your son named after the steak joint.
Or the guitar, whatever you want to.
Steak joint. Yeah.
I am here with Andrew Aker. And am I saying your last name right? Aker?
No. That is close, but not right. But that's how everybody would assume to pronounce my name, because that's what it looks like. but it's actually Akri. But
Akri. Oh man, that's awkward. Sorry. I invite guests on here and then I just insult them within the first minute of them coming on.
That's all right.
Oh, there must be a short in my cord. Okay, because I just wiggled it a little.
All right, you gotta wiggle it just a little bit. Oh, I shouldn't wiggle anything. That hurts my back.
I'm ready.
How do I say your last name?
White like the color.
White
or
like
Weicht
the color.
in Germany.
Don't complicate things for me. We have here Kristen White. I got that right.
Yeah.
I got that right. White. Oh man. ADHD rewired episode
100.
Tom, you paying attention?
I didn't know until the second time that we were supposed to say 100. I thought, I'm with you now.
ADHD rewired episode
100. See?
I was waiting for the finger.
I was waiting for the finger. Yeah, where would the finger didn't go off?
Tom, you could have not cared any less when you said 100.
I'll take everyone. We can do this. We're all intelligent, right?
Sure.
Well, you're 16 hours ahead of us, so you should be more intelligent than we are.
Exactly. You have more experience.
That's right. I've seen more of the world than you have.
You're a musician. You got to count them in. You got to, like James Brown. Can I get it in? Can I get it in? Can I count it off? Can I count it off? All right. 1, 2, 3.
All right, so Oz is going to take the lead.
And then all we're going to say is 100. I'll say, all right, Bobby, you ready? Bootsy, Jab, you got it? All right, here we go. We're going to say 100, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 100. 100. Y'all. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 100.
See? I did good twice in a row.
Thank you for listening to another episode of ADHD Rewired. And if you're new to the show, welcome to ADHD Rewired. We are more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. You can see a full outline of this and all other episodes with all the links and other resources mentioned during this interview at ADHDrewired.com. Help support this podcast by checking out my sponsors. I use Zoom video conferencing nearly every day, and so can you. Go free or go pro. But please, go to erictivers.com/Zoom so they know that I sent you. And you can get a free audiobook from Audible at erictivers.com/Audible. And next time you shop Amazon, use the Amazon search portal at ADHDrewired.com. A small percentage of your purchase will go to support this show, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. You can also support this podcast by leaving an honest rating and review in iTunes or Stitcher. This really helps other people find this show. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Don't just be a passive listener, be an active member of the ADHD Rewired community. We are on Facebook. You can like our page, but please submit your request to join our free and growing community. And don't forget to check your other inbox because I screen everybody before they come into our community. Looking for a coach? If you're still listening at this point and you answered yes, come to my website at ADHDrewired.com and schedule your free 20-minute consultation, or call me at 224-993-9450. Is your school, business, or organization hiring speakers? I provide fun and engaging presentations full of practical solutions that both educate and entertain. Hire me for your next professional development day or corporate training event. Go to ADHDrewired.com/talks. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.
And the whole DHD family. for the family. We got ADHD and ADHD now. But mommy is CDHD. Wow. Wow. That's just my goodbye song. Goodbye for now. Let's finish up this podcast. Okay.
We're done.